Do you have a? No, I don't. Can I go? Oh, I can't.
Hello, everybody. This is Michael O'Reilly. I'm the chairman of the Town of Monroe Planning and Zoning Commission. It's November the 5th, 2020, and it's 7 p.m. Hereby call to order the November 5th meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. I'm just going to read a brief introduction here. On March 14th, in response to COVID-19, Governor Lamont suspended in-person open meeting requirements. Accordingly, the Town of Monroe has selected GoToMeeting technology, which permits up to 255 members to participate. Any member of the public who desires to submit any written information relative to the business may do so up to 1 hour before the meeting and via electronic mail to the address set forth on the agenda. Notice is hereby given that the public will view or listen to this anonymously when permitted, participate in real time. This will be recorded and posted on the town's website within 7 days and be made available to the public within a reasonable amount of time. In addition to standard parliamentary procedure as outlined in this agenda, the following special rules shall apply. Please mute your microphone as to reduce background noise at any time you're not speaking. Prior to speaking, and on each occasion, each speaker shall clearly state their name and title for the record, and the use of the chat feature is prohibited at this meeting. Are there any questions? If not, then we'll call the roll. Bruno Maini. Ryan Condon.
Present.
Leon Ambrosi.
Present.
Robert Westland.
Westland, present.
Ron Schneider.
Present.
Dominic Panici.
Present.
Rich Schneider, Town Planner.
Present.
And William Agresta, Planning and Zoning Administrator.
I'm here.
Georgia Cantoris, Meeting Moderator.
Present.
And Sarah Stroud, Recording Secretary, which we know is present. We can start out with a general appointment. Is there anyone here from Connecticut Housing? I didn't notice.
Pondview, Mike.
Yes?
This is for Pondview.
Oh, right. Sorry, this is for Pondview.
Yes.
Main Street. Is there anyone here from 127 Main Street?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, Commissioner O'Reilly. We have a number of people here to talk to the commission tonight.
I'll first and kick it off if that's okay with you, Commissioner O'Reilly and everybody else.
Yeah, so I'd just like to remind you that this is a general appointment. So this is supposed to be a brief overview for the commissioners of the project. So go ahead.
All right, thank you. And thanks for giving us this opportunity to present our vision for the development of this property to the entire commission. We were before your subcommittee last month and did this, and they thought it'd be appropriate that we come before the full commission. So my name is Greg Kamidulski. Some of you know me, some of you don't. I knew Jay Keeler for about 35 years. I've been in residential real estate development for about 38 years, including 25 years as group president for Toll Brothers. And a couple years ago, Jay asked me to get involved in figuring out how his property at 127 Main might be developed. And I looked at it and I saw what was approved, which was a big commercial shopping center. And I said to Jay, unfortunately, the market for commercial shopping centers is not good right now. This property will never be developed for a shopping center at this point in time anyway. So he asked me what to do, and I did a lot of research and thinking. And I said, there's in my opinion, and based on my market research, a pretty significant demand for multifamily apartment rentals in this general area. And so we've developed some preliminary site plans. We've talked to a lot of people. I went to your workshops back in January, February, March. And as I said, we went before your subcommittee a month ago. So what we want to do tonight is just give you a flavor of what we're thinking about, what we're contemplating. So with me tonight is Kevin Soley, who will talk to you about the site plan, preliminary site plan. Howard Rappaport, who's president of Continental Properties, who has a contract to purchase the property, if approved. And he is a very significant apartment developer in the tri-state area and has developed many apartment properties in the state of Connecticut. I also have Stan Yazowski to give you some economic data and school children generation data from this proposed project. So just a couple points, and I'm going to turn it over to Kevin. This project will be a significant economic generator for the town of Monroe. The project cost will be over $40 million, $40 million. We roughly estimate that gross tax revenues generated to the town of Monroe if the project were approved and developed would be over $900,000 a year, almost $1 million. We think this, and you'll see the pictures in a minute, this would be in our opinion anyway, an iconic masterpiece development for the town of Monroe, something the town would be extremely proud of. It would be, as I said, an iconic development. We are well aware that you have a public hearing tonight on proposed amendment to your zoning regs for mixed use. We applaud that amendment, and what we're hoping to do is further develop the mixed use concept in Monroe with what we're contemplating for 127 Main Street. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin. He'll talk briefly about the site plan and the layout, and then we'll go to Howard and Stan. So Kevin, go ahead.
Thanks, Greg, and thanks, members of the commission. For the record, Kevin Soley with Soley Engineering. So as Greg mentioned, we've been working with Jay Keeler for a long time on this property. This was really a life project for Jay, and we're excited to kind of help try to see his vision potentially become a reality with this piece of property. But just to everyone's aware of the site location, so it's actually located at 127 Main Street. So it's right behind the Dunkin' Donuts, Baskin Robbins, across the street from Dutch's on Route 25. The site was approved for a commercial shopping center, grocery anchored center. That site, the site itself is a little bit challenging from a topography standpoint, so it needs extensive earthwork just to make the project viable for any development. So the site is under construction under those current approvals, and that earthwork would have to take place whether for the old approvals or for any repurposing of the property. But so what we've done is, the site's currently under construction with earthwork being completed, and then we think there's an opportunity to potentially pursue a new site plan application on that property, but it would be through a little bit of a different method from a permitting standpoint. And again, as Greg mentioned, I personally think that I applaud the commission. I'm very excited that the commission has made the application that's going to have a public hearing tonight about the mixed use. I think that's a great way for the commission to start providing for a little bit of a diversity of housing options in the community. And I think, you know, what we're talking about tonight would really kind of build upon that. And we're hoping that the commission would be receptive to what we're showing this evening with a product and a concept. And then we would be bringing this in, you know, through the subcommittee at first, probably through a different permitting path from a methodology standpoint, possibly with an overlay zone or design district. But we'd work out those details with the subcommittee and then with this commission. But the first thing we wanted to do was kind of present the concept and engage the commission's interest to pursue this type of development. And I think the site's a little bit unique in that, you know, there are very few parcels in the town of Monroe that have septic capacity to accommodate a little bit of a larger scale, multi-family residential type project like this. This property is uniquely situated where it does have that septic capacity to accommodate a little bit of a larger multi-family development. So that's why we think this could be such a good opportunity for Monroe and for the community. And I think we're very lucky that Howard Rappaport, who will speak in a little bit with Continental Properties, has expressed interest because he's been able to develop some of the, I think, kind of most prestigious and really impressive luxury apartment projects throughout the state of Connecticut and the tri-state area. And we're going to be showing you some pictures of some of the other projects and product that he puts out there, which I think really kind of sets this apart from, you know, even what could potentially be under the current mixed use regulations that you guys are proposing. This really kind of is a little bit different. So what we would be proposing would be a mixed use development. However, that mixed use development would be more separated in that we would have a commercial component out towards the front of the site closest to Route 25. And then behind that, we would have a essentially more of a traditional multifamily apartment type project. You know, the initial concept proposes approximately 174 units spread out over 6 buildings on the property and then a commercial building out front. It would have extensive amenities, really kind of making it more of a resort-like feel. And Howard's going to touch on that in terms of what he does with other projects that he's worked on and the product that he puts out there. But this is really much more of a luxury type apartment that's creating a community within a community. And it's something that can provide a lot of benefits for, you know, for the community in that it provides really a diversity of housing options that don't really exist in the town right now. It can kind of benefit a lot of different potential users in terms of, you know, empty nesters, young professionals out of school who aren't quite in a position to move into home ownership. This is a good transition for them to get an apartment in a community and then kind of evolve into that homeowner opportunity. I think with the POCD that's currently underway, I know this commission had a great presentation from the consultant that's currently doing that. And you know, part of what came out of that was that there's a real need and a focus to try to entice, you know, certain demographics from an age standpoint to come back into the community. And this type of product, this type of project could really go a long way in providing that opportunity. It could also provide a benefit for, you know, potentially, divorcees who want to stay in the community and not disrupt their kids in the school system, have a place to come and stay. And stay in Monroe. And I think it creates a lot of opportunity that the town could be really proud of. And it's a significant economic investment, which would have some pretty considerable tax benefits. We can kind of talk more if the commission has questions, but I'd like to turn it over to Howard now to kind of talk a little bit more about the product that he puts out there. And we have a number of pictures, which I think will go a long way and kind of hopefully enticing the commission to kind of take a look at this and give it some serious thought, as I think it'd be a great addition to the town.
Thank you, Kevin. My name is Howard Rappaport. I am a principal with Continental Properties. I'd first like to provide you with a little bit of background about who we are as a company. We've been building since 1957, so for about 63 years continuously. And we specialize in multifamily housing, have built probably over 25,000 residences over that time period. With regard to rental communities, we have built 23 rental communities, and we still own 19 of them. We're really building for the next generation. So we are long-term holders and look to be a long-term stakeholder in your community. We, in Connecticut, over the past 7 years, we have developed 1,243 apartment rental rental communities. So we're building in Trumbull, Shelton, Glastonbury, Rocky Hill, and South Windsor, and that's where we've built those 1,243 units. In each town in which we build, I think it's been recognized that our communities are really the jewel of the municipality in terms of multifamily housing. The photographs that you are seeing here in the PowerPoint presentation are all actual photographs of our communities in Connecticut. These are not generic images. These are communities that we have built. And what we focus on doing, among other things, is providing a highly amenitized lifestyle, so that in addition to providing luxury apartments, we're providing a housing opportunity for people who want to live in a community with more quality amenities. I think the question is, what do I really mean by that? So what I'm referring to are the interior and the exterior amenities. On the exterior amenities, it's fairly easy to see in these first few photographs. We build pools with custom cabanas, fire pits. We have bocce courts, hammock parks at our communities, and lots of outdoor lounges, including dog parks as well. On the interior, every community, including what we would hope to build in Monroe, has a large and spacious clubhouse. In Monroe, we are proposing a clubhouse of approximately 4,800 to 5,100 square feet. That would include a cinema room, a large state-of-the-art fitness room, a library with computers, or really functions today as a co-working space. We offer private dining rooms and lots of kind of breakout spaces. These clubhouses that we build have a lot of volume to them, oftentimes from 13 to 18-foot ceilings. And they're very, very nicely appointed, I think. In some ways, to me, I feel like I'm almost building hotel-style amenities. And this is really what the market in upscale towns is requiring today, and what attracts people to live in our communities. Generally speaking, we have a whole range of ages of people. We certainly have empty nesters, people who want to stay in town. We have young professionals, usually couples. We have a cohort that Kevin was referring to, which is kind of a transitional cohort, sometimes referred to maybe by Stan as the suddenly single cohort, people who are divorced or single or moving out of a single family home and not ready to move to a condo. And we're providing a housing opportunity for them. As Greg was alluding to, our vision for Pondview here is to build an upscale community with very nice elevations, extensive indoor and outdoor amenities, which all of the stakeholders of the town we think can be proud of. And I think that our demonstrated track record in Connecticut should give comfort to the Planning and Zoning Commission as you contemplate a potential rezoning of property to include multifamily residences. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have either now or after Stan speaks, to give you more background about who we are, about our vision, and about why we are excited to hopefully be building in your community.
Have Stan go first, and then we can take all the questions at once. I think that's the way to do it here. Go ahead, Stan.
Okay, thank you. Welcome. My name is Stanley Niezdowski. I am president of Realty Concepts Incorporated, a real estate consulting and advisory firm located in Guilford, Connecticut. I was asked by the client to do a preliminary development impact analysis on the subject property. And the two major questions that typically come up is how much taxes will the property generate and how many school-age children? Well, the preliminary results indicated that we would produce about $900,000 a year in real property and personal property taxes. And what people forget most of the time is not only get taxes for the real property, but also for personal property of the tenants, which is their cars. And I estimated about $900,000 in that revenue for personal and real property taxes. I did an analysis of a number of comparable apartment complexes in several counties and developed that ratio for the 185 units that are proposed here, that we would produce about 15 school-age children. And keep in mind, when we talk about public school-age children, it may not be all new children. It may be children that are relocating from within the town from one location to this complex. So it's not always a gross increase of school-age children. What impacts the demand on school-age children is income, birth rates, and lifestyle change. And the income levels for Monroe in particular is that you have a median income of about $124,000 with an average income of about $154,000, and median net worth of $648,000 and an average income of $2 million. Well, that in and of itself has the propensity to produce less school-age children than markets that have lower incomes and net worths. Other thing. Somebody has an open mic. Yeah. Okay. And the lifestyle is one of the most profound impacts that's taking place for apartment demand. As mentioned before, it's the empty nester, but the baby boomers looking for an easy lifestyle where they don't have to replace the refrigerator or the stove or cut the grass. You also have young people who would be afforded the opportunity to live in the area close to their home and work until they generate enough income to move on to purchase a home or start a family. So there's about, in Monroe, there's about, of the total households, there's about 662 households that have the propensity to rent out of the, I just lost my place here. Excuse me. Yeah, it's 12.42% of the households in Monroe that have the propensity to rent out of the 6,710 households that are there right now. And what constitutes a household is one or more persons. But the overall impact to the municipality would be a positive net tax revenue to the community if this project were to go into place. And it also fills the void for those people seeking apartment living, which is a lifestyle change, but also opens up a market that does not exist in Monroe. It affords people who are in Monroe to stay in Monroe.
Thanks, Stan. So, I think, we kind of wanted to come to the commission, kind of present a little bit about what this concept could mean for the community. Obviously we know that some of the hot button items are always, well, especially when you're talking about an apartment type project, I know the discussion about mixed use has done this. Well, what's going to be the impact of the school system, and how do you deal with the breakdown and things like that? That's why we felt it was important to have Stan involved and kind of talk about what that actual impact on the school system could be. And for the development like this that we're talking about, we are talking about a little bit of a different distribution mix between 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms, and Stan's analysis reflects that. We would actually propose this project to actually be about 65% 2 bedrooms and 35% 1 bedrooms. And that's where that analysis comes from regarding those school age children. And that's actually based on, as Stan mentioned, not only the statistics from other projects by Continental Properties, but also with other, other projects in similar communities. And I think one of the biggest differentiators with this is really the luxury type apartment and the projected rents that would come through with that. We're talking about a range of $1,800 to $1,925 for a 1-bedroom apartment, and $2,100 to $2,400 for a 2-bedroom apartment, and that's not including the amenity fees. So again, it's a very different type of product than even what you may see with the mixed use of apartments over commercial, and that's kind of why we're looking at this a little bit different than the current application that the commission's considering, which we again think is it's a great addition to the zoning regs. It's a great way to entice and incorporate some economic development, but this is a little bit different in that we are proposing, while still a mixed use project, detached multifamily units as part of this. So, I think we had, we've had a number of good conversations with staff, with the Economic Development Commission, with the subcommittee, and we thought we wanted to kind of come before the full commission to gauge the interest, gauge the feedback, give a chance to ask questions, and then we'd obviously be, if it's well received, we'd go back and we'd work with the subcommittee on how to address the zoning aspect of this, because it wouldn't fit into the current mixed use regulations that you're currently contemplating, nor do we think, or would we recommend modifying that to accommodate this type of thing. This is a very specialized and unique type of project and product that would require, we think, a little bit of a different approach. We would probably propose to do, an overlay district with a special design district, which the commission would have complete control over on an application by application basis. And we think that kind of would be the best way to address this type of project. But we really wanted to kind of gauge interest and, answer any other questions the commission may have and see if this is something that we think we could have general support for and potentially move this project forward.
Thank you, Mr. Soley. Since this is a virtual meeting, I'm going to just call the roll on the commissioners for questions. Let's start with Bruno Maini.
I have no questions.
Ryan Condon.
I don't have any questions.
Leon Ambrosi.
I don't have any questions, Mike.
Rob Westland.
My question is, how much site work is left up there? I know there's been work that's been going on for years and years. How much site work is left?
There's still quite a bit of earth removal necessary to develop that property, whether it be under the current permit or any subsequent applications, which we hope this would be one. There's probably still, we'd have to go back and check with the contractor, but there's quite a bit of activity still required to complete the project that's out there.
No type of timeline idea how long it would take?
I think they're looking at probably, additional maybe 18 to 24 months to kind of complete the work under the current approval. And obviously, anything we do from looking at modifying the approvals out there, coming in with a new application, is based on what that eventual grading would look like.
Yeah, Kevin, let me add to that. Kevin says 18 to 20, 24 months, and I've had conversations with Don Kimball about this. It's really a function of how strong the market is for the produced material. And if the market demand increases, the production will go faster because they'll be selling material faster. And conversely, if the market demand slows down, it'll go a little slower. So it's a function of market demand. But we're looking at, we think, 18 months to 22 months, roughly.
Well, that's all my questions. Thanks, guys.
Ron Schneider?
I don't have any questions.
Dominic Panici?
I have no question.
And well, I think it's an excellent proposed project for this location. And I'm excited about moving forward with this. I'd like to just ask if there's any members of the public with any questions. I know this is not a public hearing, but we might as well go with that. Are there any members of the public with questions? If not, are there any members of staff that have questions?
I have a question, Will Agresta.
Go ahead, Will.
So I get the amenities, which are great. That's a large space. In your developments, do you lease those out outside of the community?
No, we do not lease out either the interior spaces or the exterior spaces in our communities. We would lose control over the quality of the community if we did so. So we do not do so.
So when they have private dining rooms, that's not leased outside the community, but the community members could use it for their events though? Yeah, just to give you an example, the two spaces that are reserved the most are the cinema rooms as well as the private dining rooms. But they are, again, only reserved for members of the community. And they're used extensively, very frankly, almost every day.
Any other questions?
Rick Schultz, Mr. Chairman. Howard, can you advise the commission of your occupancy rates in the region?
Yeah, Rick, they average, I would say, around 97%. And that would be the median too. They're all around that kind of 96 to 97.5 occupancy rate.
That's currently, right, Howard? Current.
That's current, Greg. Yeah.
That's it, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Rappaport. And
hey, Mike, I'm sorry, it's Bruno. I have a quick question.
Go ahead, Bruno.
The site work, who's doing the site work there? Nobody knows?
Evan, you want to comment on that?
Sure. Rockhead 25 is completing the earthwork operations. They had an agreement with the landowner to remove the material from the site. And as part of that operation, there are routine reports submitted to staff. Staff is invited out to come to the site to check the elevations of the excavation, to cross-check against the approved site plans. That is an ongoing process that is consistent. Yeah.
Rockhead 25. All right, thank you.
You know what? I know a lot of the commissioners didn't have any real questions, but we would really love some feedback. You know, and I think Chairman O'Reilly, you thought it was a good positive addition to the community. We'd love to hear what other commissioners think.
If anybody wants to chime in,
Well, I got a question, Chairman. I would take this as a positive, but you know, I could be wrong, but I'm taking it as a positive. If I'm correct, what are the next steps? Should we be meeting with town staff and your subcommittee to either craft an amendment to the zoning regulations or craft an overlay zone, or what do you suggest for us in terms of taking the next steps here?
Yeah, I would suggest talking with staff. Rick and Will can direct you into which way to go, whether an overlay or whatever it would. most likely be a text amendment that would come out next, and that would become from you and us, and that would come through the subcommittee, the regulation subcommittee. But Will and Rick can guide you through that next step.
Okay, so we'll be talking to Will and Rick.
That's correct.
Mike, I think they would probably want to go to the subcommittee with that first, I would imagine, right?
Well, absolutely, but Will and Rick can tell them what to bring, that kind of stuff. All right. Well,
I'll speak real quick towards my thoughts on the project.
Yeah, we'd really love to.
Yeah, so we're all sitting here quiet.
That's why we're here.
All right. No, so I'm very familiar with the Mark. I have friends who live there. I've spent a lot of time there. It is really an impressive facility, without a doubt. I've not been invited to the movie theater though. I'm gonna have to let them know about that. But it's very nice. My only concern is just, it's mixed use. So you didn't really talk about the mixed use aspect. You mentioned something up front. The Mark is not mixed use as far as I'm aware. If it is, the buildings in front of it don't seem very connected at all to the actual residential aspect. So I'd like the mixed use to be somewhat incorporated. I know, if you're gonna have a restaurant out front, it'd be nice, but as long as the design's all the same and stuff, that would kind of be key. All right, so that's the building we're looking at. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'd want to stress that, we want mixed use. That's the whole idea. But again, they're very nice apartment buildings. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else have something to say at this point, or if not, then we're going to need to move along. We do have several public hearings tonight.
Come on. Come on, guys. That's why we're here.
Yeah, I want to make it clear. This is the non-binding discussion that we're
we're here to get feedback.
Yeah, Kevin.
We're here to get feedback.
Everything we say right now, when they come in front of us, after you think things, if you don't like the plan, you're allowed to kind of say what you want.
Change your mind.
It's kind of a questioning us.
So we'll be talking to Rick and Will, and we'll go from there.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just to remind you, I think you skipped over item 3, general public participation, not for this, but in general.
All right, well, let's do number 3 then. If there's any members of the public that would like to bring up any questions to the Planning and Zoning Commission, these are questions or concerns that you may have that are not regarding a application or anything else that is before the commission right now, or that might become before the commission in the near future. So if there are any members of the general public here that have any questions or comments, this would be the time to go ahead with them.
Yeah. This is Peter Metropolis.
Peter Metropolis.
Yes, I'm at 36.
Go right ahead.
Yes, Timothy. I actually tried to get a hold of Rick earlier this week. We played phone tag and I was in the car all day. My property manager had mentioned that we've had a lot of activity coming from Timothy down towards Independence. This has nothing to do with the application. This has nothing to do with anything before you now, but there are a bunch of dirt bikes. And I'm not sure that they're coming from Timothy or coming around there, but I'm worried that they're gonna fall into the big quarry, the big crater. I'm just hoping that you guys can discuss or be put on record that there really should be a fence around that area. I think there was supposed to be one. It never got put up. There's a berm, but apparently that's fun stuff for dirt bikes. So I just wanted the town to be aware of it. Whether they're coming up through Independence or down from my property, I don't want to get sued for somebody falling in, and I doubt the town does, and I'm sure Mr. Karp doesn't need any more litigation. So if you guys put it on record, I'd appreciate it.
Did you raise this with the first selectman's office or the police department?
I haven't. I've called Rick Schultz, but
Rick Schultz is not those two things.
Well, you know
Yeah,
what?
we are concerned as you are.
I actually have put a complaint in to what's the gentleman's name? Chapman, Joe Chapman. So I'm just bringing it up again. The police department. I'm obviously not in Connecticut right now, so it's been. I don't know if it's an ongoing thing. My property manager had witnessed a few people down there. It's just an issue. If I know there was another abandoned quarry that a few people had died in. Monroe doesn't want to be known for it. Who knows what else falls into that hole or gets thrown in there? But
Mr. Metropolis, is your project manager in Connecticut?
He is.
Okay, they can call.
Yeah, you have to call the police if it happens again.
That's fine.
Thank you.
I wanted you to be aware of it since a fence was supposed to have been installed already. All right, move onward. Thanks, guys.
Are there any other members of the public that would like to comment? Or any members of the public have any questions? Oh, hearing none, then let's move on to our public hearings.
Mike, hold on for 1 minute. Will, is that property supposed to be fenced?
I'm not aware of that being a requirement. I have to look at the files. But again, this is a police matter.
It's not a zoning matter?
Well, the fence might be, but the dirt bikes trespassing is a police matter.
All right, look into that and let me know.
Yes.
Moving on. Number 5 on the agenda is a public hearing SCP 2020-02, file 16228. This has been postponed by the applicant to 11/19/20, which will be our next meeting. Number 6, SDP 2020-01, file 139. This has been postponed also to our next meeting. Most likely our next meeting, that is 11/19/20 as well. Number 7, public hearing SCP 2020-01, file number 1621A. This has also been postponed to 11/19/2020 for the applicant. Which brings us to number 8 on the agenda, RAA 2020-04, file number 1011E. This is a proposed Stevenson Lumber District to be called SB2 District. This is a petition by Stevenson Properties LLC, Kimball Family Investments, proposing a zone text amendment. I believe we have someone here tonight that wants to give us a presentation on this.
Mike, should I read the public notice?
Oh, yes, go right ahead.
All right. Planning and Zoning Commission, Monroe, Connecticut, notice of public hearing to be held November 5th, 2020. In accordance with CGS 8-7D, a public hearing will be held on Thursday, November 5th, 2020 at 7 p.m. or soon thereafter via GoToMeeting at https://global.gotomeeting.com/join/728914621 with additional access by phone at 872-240-3212, access code 728914621 concerning the following. RAA 2020-04, file number 1011E, proposed Stevenson Lumber SB2 District. Petition by Stevenson Properties LLC by Kimball Family Investments LLC, its sole member, proposing zoning text amendments to existing 1.9.11, existing 2.2.1, new 5.2.1 to 5.2.9, existing 8.2.3, existing 10.1, and existing 10.2, establishing locational and regulatory land use standards for a potential new Stevenson Business District 2, SB2, to eventually be applied over the lands of the former Stevenson Lumber Company at 1585 Monroe Turnpike, Accessor Map 150, Lot 1, presently zoned Business 2 B2, following a separate application for rezoning to said new SP2 district. Complete details and copies of all related materials associated with the above matters are on file and available for viewing in the Monroe Planning and Zoning Department offices by appointment and on the town's website at http://www.monroect.org/content/343/1021.aspx. This was published in Voices twice, on Wednesday, October 21st, 2020, and Wednesday, October 28th, 2020. All right.
Will, do you want to go over the exhibits? I imagine we have other exhibits.
Sure. Exhibit 1, regulation amendment petition application. Exhibit 2, electronic copy. Exhibit 3, adjacent municipality referral notices. Exhibit 4, regional planning agency referral notices. Exhibit 5, Naugatuck Valley regional planning referral response. Exhibit 6, Western Connecticut regional planning agency referral response. Exhibit 7, request from town of Newtown Planning Commission for continuance of this hearing. Exhibit 8, Health Department comments. Exhibit 9, comments from Trout Unlimited. Exhibit 10, comments from Pukatuck Watershed. Exhibit 11, public comment from Karen Banaska. Exhibit 12, Town of Newtown referral response comments. And Exhibit 13, MetroCog Regional Planning Referral Response. That is all.
Okay, thank you, Will. And for the applicant?
Chairman O'Reilly, it's John Kimball and Jill Kimball, 262 Westport Road in Easton. We're here representing Stevenson Properties. It's been a long process. We started this over 2 years ago, working towards the redevelopment of the property. We've worked very closely with staff and the regulation subcommittee over the last 12 or so months, trying to come up with a common ground and a proposal that will work for us and work for the town to see the property redeveloped. In reading off the list of exhibits, we haven't received copies of all of the comments from related parties in terms of MetroCog. I don't think we've received. We were told there were no comments from the health department, and so we have not received those comments.
John, I thought they were sent to you, John, but the health department sent a comment letter with no comments. All three regional planning agencies submitted a response saying no regional impact.
Okay, and then Will, I know that you work very closely with us in terms of trying to draft a final version of the regulation, but you certainly reserved the ability to make comments. And I wasn't sure if you were just having trouble with everything going on and getting comments out, or whether you're satisfied with the regulation in its current form.
I wasn't able, between things going on and my own issues, but at the same time, I decided at one point to wait for the commission to weigh in and see what they wanted to do with this.
Okay. So, given that, this is obviously going to take, we're going to need to, basically, get the comments and respond to them. We also would like to, we've also filed subsequent to this filing the zone change map that would be required to have the zone take effect. and with the zone change filing goes with it notice of all the neighbors within 500 feet, which then allows them to come in and participate in the public hearing process. So in light of that, I don't, everybody's kind of had a chance to look at the text amendment. I didn't know if you wanted to use tonight to get, we have the planning agency's feedback, kind of get the commissioner feedback that Will is looking for, and then that would allow us time to work on a written response to comments and get that in advance, and then potentially proceed with a more formal presentation at the December 3rd meeting, where we would do both the master plan, zone text amendment, and zone change all in kind of one meeting. Otherwise, we are prepared to go through the regulation, in its entirety, but there's not a lot. I mean, other than just reading it, it's kind of, it kind of speaks for itself. I mean, there are certain things, so Chairman O'Reilly, if you could let me know whether you want me to make a presentation, and then you guys will respond, and then we'll kind of adjourn to the next, not the next meeting, but the meeting following that, or which direction would you like us to go? You're muted.
Okay, well, are all of the commissioners familiar with this zone change petition? You know that basically they want to do 2 new uses, commercial parking facility and indoor non-farm, that is cultivation facility. And they would like to add some industrial uses. There are 7 of them that are delineated on page 3 of the application. So basically, that's the application in a nutshell. 2 new uses and 7 uses from the I-2 district that they'd like to bring in. Mr. Kimball has worked with us and in the regulation subcommittee, as well as with staff. As he has said, it's been at least 18 months. It may be 2 years that we have been going over these regulation changes. Not to say that I or that staff endorse these the way they stand, obviously, but we all have had input into it. If you would like, I'd just like to call the roll to see if there are any questions or comments, and then I think perhaps the formal presentation might be better off done at a later date. Okay. All right, so I'm going to call the roll. Start with Bruno Maini.
No questions.
Or Ryan Condon.
No questions.
Leon Ambrosi.
Yeah, Mike, we went over this in the subcommittee, and maybe that, I don't know if the rest of the commissioners know what the commercial parking facility is, or what all these other things that John's proposing, and maybe that he can enlighten what this means to them. I don't know exactly if they know what that means.
So, all right, John, you want to give us a rundown of commercial parking facility?
Absolutely. No, I think that's a very good point, because not everybody is involved in the regulation subcommittee. So the site is roughly a 40-acre site. 30 acres approximately is currently developed and paved. There are 86,000 feet of buildings on the lower level, the 1585 Monroe Turnpike site, and another 31,000 square feet of buildings on the upper, what we call the Trust Tech portion of the site. So part of the commercial parking concept was to create a place for people to park their RVs, their boats and trailers, since we've got great proximity to Lake Zor. It could be a dump truck, a tractor trailer. You know, we're right at the intersection of Route 34 and 111 on a state highway. It's easy to get in and out of. You know, big lumber trucks came in for years and years into the site. And currently in town, there's a lot of those things being parked. In fact, you can see them from the Stevenson property on Cottage Street being parked illegally because, quite honestly, there's nowhere to park a tractor trailer in town legally. So, you know, this would give people a place, you know, to literally, you know, and so it took a while to kind of bring that to something that was palatable. We came up with setback requirements where we're putting this 300 feet away from the Route 111. So it can't be any closer than 300 feet to Route 111. It has to be fully screened from any adjoining neighborhoods or properties, so you can't see the commercial parking facility. It has to be gated, it has to be controlled, it has to be striped, and the spaces have to be numbered. It's not just a free-for-all where you just let somebody into a big open paved spot and say, go have at it. It was a way to take a portion of a very large site and get some utility out of it and some potential tax revenue, because the commercial trucks, if they're parked over 6 months in town, would be registered in town because that's where they're garaged. If it's garaged in town, then the town gets to tax it. So that adds, you know, adds to the tax rolls. It gives people a legal place to park so that when people complain, oh, well, there's a landscaper and he's parking his trailer in my residential neighborhood, zoning enforcement can say, oh, we have a legal place that can be done. Let me give them a call, you know. And that's half the battle. Is it's very hard to find a place to park your box truck or your landscape trailer. Any of the trucks or trailers, you know, one of the requirements that the commission wanted was that we make sure that they're all currently registered with the Department of Motor Vehicles, so that way they would be taxed. They also also there's no repair work or maintenance that's allowed to be done on those in that commercial parking area. So the area would be fenced and enclosed to limit access, and it's screened from the road. It really provides a kind of a great interim use for us, because if the redevelopment goes well and the buildings start leasing up and we need to build more space, we don't have to demolish anything to build another building. So it's something that, you know, gives us it could be a long-term use, but it also could be a good transitional use for a portion of the property. So that, I think, sums up the commercial parking piece. The indoor cultivation, that came about through inquiries from a couple of commercial brokers looking for places to grow herbs, and we had a company that was looking to do aquaculture and aquaponics, where they have fish farming and vertical farming, and they would grow basil. And there's a company, a food manufacturing company in Bridgeport, that would use all the basil that we could produce, that this company could produce. Vertical farming is one of the kind of cleanest uses. It's very hot from a farming standpoint. If you look at any of the growing and farming magazines, it's a very exciting part of farming, because it has such a low water usage requirement, and also a low chemical pesticide and fertilizer requirement because you're dealing with a much more controlled environment than out in nature. You can also grow, which you can't in New England currently, year round. So it gives people an advantage that they can have a crop 12 months of the year and plan a production schedule for 12 months of the year and not have to outsource based on seasonality. For us, it was also an opportunity to potentially make a farm, a vertical farm to table concept if we could attract a restaurant to the site, but that's a lot more far-fetched. But the vertical farming, people who seem to be opposed to it, I don't believe have done their research and completely understand it. We're not, this is not an entree into the, marijuana business. It's basically an entree or just another use that we could add to the property. I also want to point out that I did, make an error in drafting this regulation amendment. When I incorporated the municipal use section, which is, the municipal use section. The municipal use section we incorporated from the industrial regulations. We did that as a potential accommodation for the the Department of Public Works and or the dog pound. But the transfer station came across with that. It was not intentional. We're not in it, and we've gotten a number of letters, one from Newtown, one from Trout Unlimited, one from Putatuck River Alliance, opposing the municipal use of the facility. I think more specifically the transfer station, but we would be fine if the commission wanted to strike the municipal uses at this point in time. And if the town ever wanted to look at using the facility, they could come back with a text amendment at that time and propose municipal use. Right now, we have no current intention on bringing municipal use to the property. We're just trying to leave the options open. I think that as far as there were a couple of other, while I'm going on about things, there were a couple other little misunderstandings. The first section that we changed in 1.9.11 was basically staff trying to find a place to, a repository in the regulations itself for a common place to put the uses allowed in setbacks, such as flagpoles, driveways, things like that. Right now, each section of the regulations has its own area for what's allowed and what's not allowed. And that 1.9.11 was more of us working with staff and saying, if we put it in this one place and then everybody's bound by it, and then we don't have some areas where there's mistakes or not mistakes based on what zone you're in. It would make for more uniform interpretation of the regulations. The rest of it is pretty much, our drafting. A lot of we worked very hard to come up with compromise, and some of the compromise was, we have a certain amount of what I call grandfathered outdoor storage on the site. So the compromise with the regulation subcommittee was that instead of putting a percentage or other things into the regulations, that we agree not to use any area that wasn't previously already grandfathered. So there won't be any more outside storage than there was or would be allowed by our as of right use at this point in time. So, and then we further restricted that by putting limitations against the residential property boundaries so that we gave them a greater setback from what was previously approved. So I think we had a, you know, it took a while to wrangle this together, but I think we worked. We went. There was a lot of back and forth, and we had some very productive. I mean, we started after kind of withdrawing the last application by just going in with a list and saying, here's a list of the 20 things. Do you like this? Do you hate this? Which ones don't you want on the list? And we won't talk about them anymore. And it really evolved from looking at, you know, what the regulation was, how we wanted to bring it in, whether we wanted to do it as we started down the path of an overlay, and then we came back to a standalone zone. So it was a lot of effort, but you know, I think it gave everybody a pretty good understanding of where we, you know, kind of where we came to. You know, a number of the buildings are already manufacturing buildings, so adding manufacturing as a use isn't actually adding anything in those buildings. You know, so but overall, I think it's it came away. We got some good comments from you know, Putatuck River Alliance and the Trout Unlimited, but the comments are really more geared towards the site plan approval process than the text amendment. You know, they relate to the water temperature on pavement and things like that. The development of this, it's our intention in the development of this to and that's why doing it with the site plan will help. You know, we want to landscape the front, put in a tree line drive into the property, have a, you know, a full tractor trailer turnaround in the property so you can access the different buildings, add in things that aren't there, like stormwater protection, vortechnic units, stormwater cleaning units. So there's, every time we develop a building, this site will become cleaner than it was and have less pavement than it does right now. So that's a claim that very few projects can make, is that they're going to reduce impervious surface and make the environment better by adopting a regulation and moving it forward. But this will have that benefit at the end of the day. And I think, you know, I think it'll be something that we're all proud to have worked together very hard on. So I guess you can take Commissioner O'Reilly.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Kimball. Leon, do you have any other questions?
Yeah, John, I read the thing from Newtown today, and how far away for the commercial parking were you planning on putting the commercial parking from the halfway river?
Okay, so that's a good question, and it's also in the Putatuck River Alliance thing. The commercial parking, our property line is 400 feet from the Putatuck River to our property line. And then since that property line is a residential property line, it's an additional 75 feet in from the property line that the commercial parking would start. So we would be 475 feet from the Putatuck River. And to get to the river, you'd have to go up 20 feet to the railroad and then down to you know, a long way to get to the Putatuck River. The area, and we'll obviously get into, you know, because like when we bring in the commercial parking, we'll have to bring in, you know, a special exception permit plan showing, you know, the landscape and the stormwater controls and things like that, because it's, you know, those issues are important. But we will, I will tell you that the town of Newtown paved 41 parking spaces and put in 80 boat slips right on the Boys Halfway River at the Lake Zor intersection across from the property I used to own at Bridge Road. So if they're concerned about pavement heating up and parking, they should probably look inward instead of outward, because theirs is directly on the water and has a direct impact, and they've done nothing for stormwater controls. But to answer the question is we're almost 500 feet. I know Putatuck says, you know, they'd like us to be 500 feet. That would not be an unreasonable requirement that we maintain a setback distance of 500 feet from the halfway river.
Yeah, but I believe they're concerned about runoff from parking of the vehicles, I guess, I would think, right? Like the
Yeah.
oil and stuff like that. So, I mean, I can see the concerns. You know, I mean, I can understand the other people talking about, you know, the runoff from the pavement, from the water and heating up the water and stuff like that. But I think they're more concerned about the runoff from parking commercial vehicles there, from oils and stuff like that. So
Right.
I think that's what their concern is. But
Yep.
I just was wondering if, because we probably have to put some kind of setback there because, you know, we don't want to get the commercial parking too close to something like within 200 feet or, but you said it couldn't be anyway because it's your property line 75 feet, right? You're saying?
The river's 400 feet from our property.
So it's 400 feet from your property line. Okay.
Yeah, I can't get close enough to that river. But you know, Leon, it's a great point, and these people raise very valid points. But when we do commercial parking, we'll be adding the parking lot was developed when it was originally developed. The spec that the engineer put on the plan was oil and stone because this was developed in the 70s and 80s. And in the 70s and 80s, you used oil on the parking lot. That's how, you know, it's now paved. So that problem has gone away. When we develop it into a commercial parking facility, we will have to use engineering techniques to basically clean the water and renovate it and make sure we've got oil water separators, make sure we've got Technic units to take out any solids. We're going to be adding way more controls than already exist on the property that as it's been used for the last 40 or 50 years. So what I'm trying to say is that we're in the first step of this, but the process that we're involved in with the town will bring this property leaps and bounds forward from where it currently stands. Right now, water runs off the hot pavement into the drain and into the river. Then now, when we finish developing, it'll run into a landscape area. That landscape area will be 100 and something feet long, so the water has a chance to cool down. Then it goes into a Technic unit and gets cleaned, and the solids get taken out. Then it goes to oil water separator, and any oils get taken out. Our catch basins will have oil hoods on them. We will be so much better off. They will be so much better off when we're done than today. So I think the comments are good comments, and I think they were well received by us. I think that, you know, it is our intention to make this a better place, and we certainly want to be able to fish in that stream on the other side of the Route 34. So.
All right, one more question. You're planning on removing the item 6 from the Monroe Government Services, or you just want to get rid of the transfer station?
We're open to whatever the commission wants to do with respect to that.
Yeah, because I think when we discussed in the subcommittee, there was never anything about a transfer station, right?
No, there wasn't. That was my mistake, and it was a pure. I cut and pasted something, and it was a complete mistake.
Okay. That's all I have, Mike. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move along. Rob Westland.
Excuse me.
Sorry.
Are you going to put it for public?
Yeah,
public
after the commissioners, we'll go to the public after the commissioners. Okay?
Absolutely.
Rob Westland?
Yeah, Mr. Kimball, my question, I mean, regarding the commercial parking facility, would this facility, were you planning on having it manned, 24 hours a day?
Yes, sir. It wouldn't be manned 24 hours a day, but it would be card access controlled 24 hours a day. So it would have a gate. It would be a gated facility. We would have an access control system where we could man obviously security cameras, but an access control system where we could control who goes in and when.
Okay, that sounds good. And what were was there going to be anybody manning this at any time, or was it just going to be card access only?
No, we anticipate that during the day there would be an on-site person manning the facility. But that would be during the daytime, kind of daytime hours. But you could also do you'd be able to do online reservations just like some of the other storage facilities that are out there.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Schneider.
No questions. You know what? Is there any type of drawing or draft or anything of what it's going to look like?
Yes, sir. That's why we were saying that it would probably be best to hopefully the commission will adjourn this to the December meeting, and then we'll be presenting a master plan, which has a drawing, landscape plan. The landscape plan are landscape features that we're required to put in before we can have any occupants on the site. So yeah, we'll have a full design package for you for the December meeting.
On that point, John, sorry to interrupt, but the application you submitted does not this one, but the other one that is scheduled for December does not include those components as it should have.
Okay, we'll have to check with that because it was supposed to have been included.
I would say that's going to be a very important thing as far as approval, especially in an area like that. Everybody's talking about it. I can't say that I'm not disappointed as far as I was hoping for so much more of that property, especially in that location. But when it comes to everybody else, the way it looks, the way you don't get to see what you're planning on doing is going to be very important.
Yep.
Basically hiding it.
Oh no, we have a really nice entrance feature, so I'll make sure that if it wasn't in the package, it was an omission, and I'll make sure that the landscape plan gets sent over because it's a critical feature. How this appears from the street and the entranceway to the town is very important to us. We are getting rid of all that barbed wire and all the fencing along and creating a landscape feature that controls access to the site instead of a fence to control access to the site.
So John, we can talk tomorrow about the missing piece, but it's really the redevelopment master plan that's not included.
Yep. Okay. I think part of it is,
Commissioner Panici.
No question.
No questions. Okay. Will, do you have anything else?
No, not at this time.
Not tonight. All right, then I'm going to open it up to the public. I know there's at least one member of the public would like to speak. Do you want to go ahead? Just identify yourself, name and address, please.
I could speak at this point in time. My name is Joe Hobius. My address is in Newtown, 3 Leopard Drive. I'm a member of the Putatuck, actually the vice president of the Putatuck Watershed Association. I see that the commission has received our letter. And just to clarify, we would be very interested in not only the runoff from the facility, but also the temperature runoff of the facility. That's an important feature as well. We've been working with the town of Newtown for 14, 15 years, actually monitoring water quality there at the site, immediately downstream. It's not clear without that site development plan exactly how the runoff would come off and be treated and that sort of thing. Heard some of the petitioners' comments on that sound favorable and interesting, but and understand that this isn't a site development plan at this point in time, but would be very interested in reviewing and continuing to comment on that. Halfway River is really one that we use as a clean background site for some of the other streams there in town. And very interested in the maintenance of that as both a recreational and a rare cold clean water resource. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Okay, are there any other members of the public that would like to comment or have any questions?
Michael, this is
Yes.
Karen. This is Karen Bernaska speaking, and I sent in a letter. And I do have many questions on the proposal. However, in general, my request to the commission is, as you are in the process of updating the POCD, this is a critical area. It's one of the gateways to Monroe. And as the commission looks to enhancing economic potential and also protecting the environment, I would question why a major zone change like this would be done prior to the completion of the POCD. And I thank you for your consideration.
Well, thank you, Karen. As far as the next POCD is concerned, in the areas of economic development, there are not going to be many changes that would apply to this property, this part of town. We'd like to see, it's already a business zone. It's already a commercial area. So any new commercial development in town, we'd rather see it there than in another area. There's buildings there. We'd like to see them recycled versus torn down or just fallen down, basically, which is what they're going to be doing pretty soon. We did just have a review of we just had a workshop last week, and this is not going to be closed this session tonight. There'll be much more time for input. But as far as economic development, the new POCD is not going to be that much different, especially concerning this kind of a project and this property. Also, as far as open space, this is a nice big piece of open space. However, as you know, this is really not on our list of open spaces that the town would like to acquire. But we will be taking all comments into consideration, and we're not going to close the hearing tonight.
Great, thank you.
Anything else you'd like to?
No, I think I would like to have the opportunity to speak at another at a later date. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other members of the public that have any comments?
Yeah. Hello?
Go ahead and just identify yourself, name and address.
Yeah, my name is John Liggio. I live at 2 Whispering Pine Road, which abuts to the old Trustec location. And I'm concerned about the aquifer and what is that exactly is going in. Is it up at this part of the property?
I don't know if you want to comment on what you plan on for the northern or the more elevated, not northern, the southern more elevated portion of the property.
The southern elevated property.
Yes. Well, we have had discussions with some companies, but we don't have a specific company identified for it yet. You mentioned an aquifer, but we're not. This is definitely not in either an aquifer protection area or a public water supply watershed. That being said, we wouldn't be doing anything. The site is significantly impaired in terms of the ability to have any high water usage use on the site. So what we envision a lot of is like moving and storage, warehousing, that kind of use on the property. because we are very limited in terms of septic capacity or ground using the ground for any kind of wastewater disposal. So in most cases, we'd have some type of dry or drier use on the property.
Okay, so when you say storage, John,
yes,
what does that infer?
It could be
What kind
a moving company where they store furniture in the building, that kind of thing. We don't know yet what is going into that specific building.
Right. So it's just going to be enclosed in the building, not out on the property.
Well, that site up there had out. When I don't know if you were there when Trust Tech was operating.
Yeah.
So you're familiar when that was operating. The entirety of that site was covered with trusses and lumber and work in process. Yeah, but that's historically the grandfathered use of that property. So that, I did the work at 1520 Monroe Turnpike. They said that the truss builders would be outdoors hammering, making oversized trusses outside of the building till 11 o'clock at night, So I don't think we're going to have a truss company in there, but,
It's 3 a.m. in the morning.
Till what time?
3 a.m.
My.
Wow.
Used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a lot of trusses, but we're not, the companies that we've been dealing with are not nighttime use so far. From what we've had interest from, we have no nighttime use second or third shift related companies. They've all been daytime companies. I can't guarantee that yet because we haven't signed anything with anybody, but that's predominantly who has been interested in the property.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Again, I was concerned about the aquifer and any kind of waste that would be either septic or otherwise dumped.
Yeah, the good news for the property is that in the last 2 years, we've been able to get the entire property cleaned up. It was a Transfer Act property, and in the last 2 years, we've been successful working with the lumber yard and the owners of the property, and they've invested a substantial amount of capital to do an entire cleanup. And we've gotten clean groundwater results, and we're getting very close to closing out the Transfer Act. So that property, during this delay, has come full circle from a contaminated property to what will be a clean property.
Wonderful.
Right. Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you, John. I wish you well in developing the property, and
thank you.
Hope we'll be good neighbors.
I hope so too.
All right, thank you.
Who's laughing?
Everybody. Thank you.
And are there any other members of the public that would have any comment on this application?
Yeah, yes. Can you hear me?
Go right ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Ron, go ahead.
Ron Bonofsky on 76 Holly Place. I joined the meeting late, so I admittedly did not get a good preview of what was said for maybe the first 10 or 15 minutes. That login address on the website, it doesn't tell you that you have to punch in the last 8 digits of a number. They don't call it a login number. Anyway, that's a different subject. What I did hear so far was that this property is very sensitive, is very questionable no matter what you do, what you're going to disturb. I don't know exactly where or what the impact of future development would be on the existing sensitive areas that are probably, I don't know if it's a brownfield that was previously abandoned or remediated or stabilized or what. You're in an area where that section of Route 111 and going in and out of there with trucks or anything for that matter is a extremely hazardous situation, especially in rainy, cloudy, or snowy conditions. I don't know if anybody's even thought about what kind of traffic would be generated with trucks. My personal feeling is, and it makes me shudder just to think of it, is trailer truck accidents. And I don't know what else they would be bringing in there and temporarily storing, but that would present other problems of pollution and God knows what else. What kind of thoughts were put to remediating the property and getting a grant or something, or see what kind of federal or state monies are available when you have a sensitive property that does have previous history of contamination, excessive contamination, and turning it into a habitat and something that at least looks good, but doesn't add any load onto the town in terms of traffic, responding to traffic accidents in a very difficult area. And I've seen a number of them over the years. I live on Holly Place, just Old Zor Road comes right out onto it, almost just below where Trust Tech used to be. Nothing that I've seen there in terms of accidents were pretty scenes. Public safety with that road, that intersection, is something that has to be given more thought than I saw in any of the proposals that I was able to hear. Storage and warehousing, all I can envision is something like the industrial zone or some of the other developments that were put in town to give us a larger taxable base. I think we have to realize that the town is over 95% developed, both commercially and residentially. I think we need more time to think this out and get some really well thought out and ideas of what is going to be the benefit of this to the town. A warehouse, I don't know who makes the money on a warehouse. That's just plain old brick and mortar, the cheapest kind of construction you can get. I can't envision doing anything appreciable to the town. We have to worry about how we pay for the existing school system we have, and I don't see something like this benefiting that in any meaningful way. The idea that we have to develop every last square foot of this town and we're going to gain tremendously from it, I think is something that turned out not to be very true in many cases. This is nowhere near ready to make any kind of decisions from with the ideas I've seen proposed here so far. And I don't want to close my mind to anything or some good ideas, but I would like to consider remediating the property if at all possible and looking into possible grants and federal funds to do that. And it's in a very it's in an area where environmentally you got the Housatonic River. We've already created developments around the river there that did nothing to enhance it or protect it. It's already got PCB contamination at the bottom of it. All these things were a result of people developing something with the best of intentions in mind and not thinking it through, and especially long term. Trucks and warehouses don't do anything for the town and don't do anything to mitigate the dangerous section of road there that hill is. That's about all I have to say. When is the next meeting on this going to be? I can't think of anything to support this.
Thank you, Mr. Banofsky. This meeting will be continued, I believe, into the second meeting in December.
Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public that would like to comment?
Yes, Kevin Soley, speaking as a resident, 16 Crown View Drive. I live right up the hill from Stevenson Lumber. I strongly encourage the commission, I'm pleading with the commission to please consider this application favorably. I drive by that site all the time and it's dilapidated and it hasn't been a productive contributing property to this community in a really, really long time. And activity breeds activity. And if the commission can see it to accept and adopt a regulation which will actually allow for some commercial activity to actually happen on the property, that will enable economic investment to create some interest, that will spur additional interest. And, you know, there was a lot of talk about stormwater quality and all really good points, but the existing property has absolutely none of those controls in place. There's very limited vegetation or landscaping. The heat island effect is real. So the thermal impacts that are potential from the property exist today and will continue to exist unless something happens at the property. So the fact that there's an applicant willing to invest in this property, install landscaping, which would reduce the heat island effect, that will in itself provide a benefit. Providing stormwater quality improvements will provide a benefit. And frankly, you know, there was an application before the commission almost 2 years ago, which was not acted upon. There's, you know, been a lot of discussion around this property, but no action. And there was a comment made about the POCD. This property was identified in the last POCD and nothing happened. There was no activity. So now that there's actually someone trying to invest in the property, I'm pleading with the commission to please consider this favorably, because I'm really tired of driving by this old empty site that does nothing to contribute to the property. And you know, the statement about, I don't know what, you know, industrial stuff does, it expands the tax base, because the existing tax value from that, from a tax assessment standpoint, is nil, and it gets lower and lower every day when there's no reinvestment in the property. So I'm speaking as a resident, as someone who lives right up the road. Please consider this favorably. Please get someone to, you know, invest in it, invest in the site, allow it to get activity, because that's going to create additional benefits, and that'll really kind of do something to make this property more beneficial to the community. So that was it. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Soley. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak?
Hi,
Any
this
other
is
members?
Nicole Lupo at 11 Holly Lane. And I just want to add on to Mr. Soley's comment. I still have parents that reside down in the Stevenson area, and I agree that the entire site is an eyesore and has been for quite a while. My question is, does any of these amendments include the small piece of property on Cottage Street that used to be a part of the Stevenson Lumber, which has now become quite an eyesore and has some unfavorable activities going on, not being seen from Route 111?
I'm not sure. I don't think that piece is part of it. Is it, John?
So, Chairman, we don't own that piece, but I have talked to the owner, and honestly, what he's waiting for is he's waiting for us to open the doors on our piece and invest in our piece, and then he plans on investing in his piece. So he has told us directly that he is not going to do anything on his piece until our piece comes off the ground. I don't understand the concept, but it's, you know, I know that when we do redevelop our piece, it will add value to his piece, and I guess that's what he's waiting for, is a bump in value.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that would like to comment tonight? Any other members of the public? If not, then Mr. Kimball, do you want to wrap it up?
Sorry, yes. So no, I appreciate the comments, especially those from the commission and from the both Trout Unlimited and the Putatuck Watershed people. We truly do feel that everything that we're aiming for will, every tree we plant will reduce the temperature of the pavement underneath that plant, so everything we do on this development, whether it's just by taking out pavement, and that's why I think we're hoping to be on the first meeting in December is when our other plan is supposed to be presented, but everything that we're aiming for will beautify the buildings, reskin them, re-roof them, and the landscape that we add and the stormwater controls and those measures. It is development, but it's redevelopment, and it's the absolute goal of the DEP, of all the environmental and conservation groups, is to take properties that are already developed, reduce the amount of pavement, reduce the amount of pervious surface, and increase the landscape coverage areas, and come up with a net positive benefit. Even talking to the town engineer, he said that this property alone can contribute significantly to the town's MS4 stormwater reduction requirements and be a huge help for the town overall in terms of meeting stormwater reduction goals. So, with that said, we look forward to continuing this presentation in December, and any other comments. Feel free to send the comments because it gives us an opportunity to look at potentially something that we may have missed. Obviously the pickup on the transfer station was something I clearly missed, but any other comments, we'll vet them and make sure that we are addressing them in some fashion. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Mr. Kimball, and we're going to continue this public hearing.
We're adjourning it to December 3rd meeting.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda, number 9, is also a public hearing. This is RAA 2020-05, file number 1012E. This is a town proposal. It's a proposal coming from your Planning and Zoning Commission regarding mixed-use development. Will, do you want to, Ryan, do you have the public notice?
I do. All right. Planning and Zoning Commission, Monroe, Connecticut, notice of public hearings to be held November 5th, 2020, in accordance with CGS 8-7D. A public hearing will be held on Thursday, November 5th at 7 p.m. or soon thereafter via GoToMeeting at https://global.gotomeeting.com/join/728914621 with additional access by phone at 872-240-3212, access code 728914621, concerning the following: RAA 2020-05, file number 1012E, mixed use development. Planning and Zoning Commission proposed zoning text amendments to allow residential apartments for rent above commercial uses, therefore providing for a mixed-use development affecting certain B1 and B2 district parcels, having direct street frontage and access via Main Street, Route 25, within a B1 district or B2 district between the southerly town boundary shared with the town of Trumbull and south of Knollwood Street. Complete details and copies of all related materials associated with the above matters are on file and available for viewing in the Monroe Planning and Zoning Department offices by appointment and on town's website at http://www.monroeconnecticut.org/content/343/351/373/1021.aspx. A Notice was published in Voices twice on Wednesday, October 21st, 2020, and Wednesday, October 28th, 2020.
Thank you, Commissioner Condon. I have just some opening remarks since this is a planning and zoning proposal. Since the last POCD 2010, and especially over the last year, we've been working on formulating a mixed-use regulation. We've been doing this to address the changing economic situation and the housing needs and opportunities of Monroe. We've been working in the regulation subcommittee and closely with staff to create a new district that encourages diversity of compatible uses. In other words, business, commercial, and rental apartments in the already existing B1 and B2 districts along the Route 25 corridor. So these are controlled developments that will be designed to result in a positive economic impact on the taxable grand list and impose a minimum burden to the town on services and municipal infrastructure. So due to the special characteristics of the Route 25 corridor, our desire is to create an attractive environment. These regulations are intended to be flexible in nature and to maximize the benefits to the town while enhancing the environment by encouraging public walkways, shared off-street parking, and the reuse of currently unoccupied commercial space. We've conducted workshops and we have visited mixed-use developments in surrounding towns. We have already reviewed any impacts to the school district, to the utilities in town, to the roads, to traffic, and to septic capacity. All of our findings were considered in this final draft that's going to be presented to you tonight. I am aware that we're going to be receiving further input tonight by the public. And of course, we will take all of those comments into consideration before going on and approving a final mixed use regulation. So now I'd like to ask Will if you'd like to read the exhibits and to go ahead and give a presentation of the mixed use regulation.
Okay. Exhibit 1, Commission Draft Zoning Text Amendment. Exhibit 2, Regional Planning Agency Referral Notices. Exhibit 3, Public Watershed Referral Notices. Exhibit 4, Adjacent Municipality Referral Notices. Exhibit 5, Response of Referral from Naugatuck Valley COG, which had no regional impact. Exhibit 6, referral responses from Western Connecticut COG, indicating no regional impact. Exhibit 7, public input comments from Hans Schumann. Exhibit 8, Metro COG referral responses indicating no regional impact. And Exhibit 9, public comment letter from Nicole Sayers. That is all we got from exhibits. George, if you can put up the text, that would be helpful.
Yep, give me 1 second.
Thank you. As I said at the beginning, and as the chairman has noted, these are a draft regulations to the zoning regulations, amending various sections that are of the commission's proposal. It's broken up into 4 amendments. First, I'll just go over the overview of the 4, and then we'll go into them in more detail. The first one deals with the definition sections in the zoning ordinance and introducing a new definition for this use, which would be called residential apartments above commercial uses. That's the focus of this amendment, to bring in apartments into commercial properties, therefore creating mixed-use development. The second amendment that we'll get into in more detail is the schedule of permitted land uses, obviously introducing this into the districts. Amendment 3 deals with off-street parking. And Exhibit 4 are the special exception permit supplemental standards, which we'll spend the most time on. So again, going back to the beginning, Amendment 1, which we see on the screen. The definition for this new use is residential apartments above commercial uses, and it would be defined as a residential dwelling unit for rent contained within an upper floor of an existing or proposed commercial use building, therefore creating the mixed use. We can move on to the next one, please. The second amendment is the amendment of the schedule of permitted uses, Schedule 10.1, introducing the residential apartments above commercial uses as a special exception permit in both the B1 and B2 districts based on footnote 5. And footnote 5 says, use limited to lots zoned B1 or B2 with direct street frontage and access via Main Street, Route 25, as set forth in section 8.23B P2. What that reference to that section does is it further refines the locational requirements, and we'll get into that, but just to jump, since we're there, the locational requirement would be that the mixed-use development may be permitted, shall have direct frontage and access on Main Street, and be within a B1 district or a B2 district between the southerly town boundary, so the town boundary that's shared with Trumbull, and south of Norwood Street. So any B1, B2 district between Norwood Street to the south boundary with Trumbull would be eligible for this use. Okay. Amendment 3, off-street parking. The parking requirements for this use would be the same as that for any other multifamily unit type, and that is based on the bedroom counts that they would present. Move on to the next one, please. The next section, Amendment 4, is the meat of the amendment. These are the regulations in which the apartments above commercial uses would be permitted. The purpose and intent, I think, is something that the chairman has already kind of gone over in his opening remarks. The location requirement is what we just talked about as far as being in a B1 or B2 district between the southerly boundary with Trumbull and Norwood Street. The permitted uses would simply be residential apartments for rent, and these would be required to be leased for a period of no less than 12 consecutive months, so that we're not getting into short-term rentals. This is an actual long-term rental situation. The accessory uses, very quickly, would be typical with most districts. Signage. They would be allowed to have an accessory home occupation, except the difference on this one is that we could have no non-resident employees, unlike that in the single-family district, which allows 1 or 2 non-resident employees. And then it would also allow typical subordinate maintenance, utility storage, recreational, social type uses, which you see in most developments, as well as landscaping, lighting, site utilities, and other infrastructures that are all regulated currently in Article 6. Next page. Off-street parking would be pursuant to Article 6 and would be the standards that I've met before about the multifamily. The minimum requirements for off-street parking will be the same as multifamily. There will be a minimum of 1 off-street parking space per residential apartment. It's reserved for the exclusive use of individual apartment residents. Garages may be permitted on the ground level or grade, and access to garages shall be from the side or rear of the building. The parking or storage of recreation vehicles, boats, campers, ATV, and other scenarios would be prohibited. Other accessory use buildings are to be coordinated and shared with the commercial uses, and including things like refuse, recycling. The whole idea there is that the uses are commingled and they work together, getting a true mixed-use development. Lot area and bulk requirements would be the same as the underlying B1 or B2. I see we need a typo. We need to strike or LOR district. We're only doing the B1 and B2 districts as set forth in the locational requirements. Density, access, bedroom size, and construction. The density requirements would be a 50-50 situation. So the commission is proposing that to do mixed use, to have the apartments, that would be equal to the commercial. So if you have 50% on the ground floor, you'd have 50% apartments on the top, and they would have to be equal. Things that don't get counted are exterior spaces, and the other things that would be shared depending on who uses what between commercial and residential. Again, trying to keep a 50-50 mix rather than pick a number of units per acre or something like that where it's based on square footage. Access would be needed to be to the apartments to a central interior shared access. So it wouldn't be like a motel kind of situation where you have multiple doors. It would be a central door, and had to have adequate access, obviously for firefighting purposes, and whatnot. Bedrooms. The residential apartments may include studios, 1 bedrooms, or 2 bedroom units with no more than 10% of the total apartment unit count being 2 bedroom units. The 2 bedroom threshold is the real difference in the multiplier of what generates or what has a higher potential to generate school-age children. Once you move into a 3 bedroom unit, you tend to get school-age children in those types of developments. So between limiting it to 2 bedrooms or less and 10% of the 2 bedrooms, this has a low propensity for generating school-age children, which would have obviously some other impacts potentially to the school district. Units have to be designed in a way that we also would count separate rooms like libraries, dens, studios, office, lofts, and other similar spaces as bedrooms so that they don't inadvertently get converted on their own. The size of the apartments, the commission has gone back and forth with this. The minimum floor area would be 500 square feet and the maximum living area would be 1,000 square feet. And this is the livable floor area. Construction and occupancy of the resident uses. This section basically is saying that the commercial and the apartments would keep pace with construction. And occupancy is referring to finished, the space being finished and by the building department. Not necessarily having a tenant in it, but certainly being done. Affordable units, the commission is proposing that where you have a mixed-use development including 10 or more apartments, that a minimum of 10% of the apartments would be restricted to rent at an affordable rate to persons not exceeding 80% of median income. And that there would be certain requirements that go with affordable units, which are very similar to other standards in the existing regulations in the other districts where we have affordable housing. Again, these would be rental units, affordable rental units. And that the affordable units would be constructed, sized, and outfitted in an equal configuration as market rate units. And they would also be constructed on a prorated basis as construction proceeds. Design. You with? No, you gotta go one more, please. Okay. Design. So this references the existing design standards in 610 and 7.2 of the zoning regulations. And the reference here is that the new apartments would be integral to the overall building design and facade, be designed to avoid a barracks or dormitory appearance, like I said, like motel analogs. Pitch roofs and whatnot. Again, to integrate this to make it all look like one cohesive development, mixed use development. Sidewalks and amenities, as was mentioned in the opening remarks, that the commission would require such things between the buildings, between parking areas, site amenities, as well as connections to abutting streets. Again, making this walkable, having a connection to different businesses, not only on the property, but on neighboring properties. And that obviously site amenities would be encouraged as far as sitting with benches, gardens, walking paths, and other activities for the residents and the business customers as well. Utilities. Water supply would be required to be public water. Because the town of Monroe doesn't have a sewer system, Obviously, the sewage system would be on site and would have to accommodate the apartments as well as the commercial uses. Stormwater management would be according to the code regulations, and that the utilities would be installed underground, and that refuse and recycling facilities would be coordinated between the uses, and that roof-type mechanical equipment except solars shall be hidden and screened from view on the ground. So in essence, that is the draft regulation.
Oh, thank you, Will. I'm going to start by polling the commissioners for any comments, questions. Remember, this is your regulation. Start with Commissioner Maini.
I have no questions.
Commissioner Condon.
No questions.
Commissioner Ambrosi.
I don't have any questions right now. Maybe I want to hear from, this is a public meeting, right? So wait for the public.
We are going to hear from the public.
Right, so I'll talk after that.
Commissioner Westland.
I have no questions.
Commissioner Schneider.
I have no questions.
Commissioner Panici.
No question.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Rick Schultz, can I do my report before the public?
Yes, Mr. Schultz.
Yeah, I think this would be advantageous.
Go right ahead.
As the chairman indicated earlier, the commission has actively been working on the formulation of mixed-use regulations as recommended in the 2010 POCD. Several subcommittee meetings and commission workshops were held to formulate appropriate regulations for the town of Monroe. In addition, staff has also inspected several mixed-use developments in the region and has consulted with municipal staff in these communities. The following information was obtained and is noted for the benefit of the commission and the public tonight. The Long Hill Green mixed-use development in Trumbull contains 8 market rate apartments of both 1 and 2 bedroom units. Since the issuance of the COs, there have been no children residing in these apartments. This project has 2- and 3-story buildings with up to 1,250 square feet of floor area for the larger apartment unit. The development is located within the Route 25 corridor and has been received well by the town of Trumbull as an appropriate and well thought out addition to the community. A larger multifamily development containing 202 market rate dwelling units, also in Trumbull, containing 1 and 2 bedroom units, has resulted in a very low number of school-age children. The total number of children occupying this unit ranges from 15 to 20. The school district has not considered this as an excessive number and does not have a negative impact to the projected enrollment numbers. The town of Newtown has also allowed conversions of upper floor commercial space to apartments with success. The maximum floor area is 1,500 square feet. No school-age children have been reported. The town recently approved a referendum in allowing apartment units within the former Fairfield Hills campus with the requirement that it be mixed use. This is consistent with the thinking and direction of the Monroe mixed-use regulations. In summary, it has been represented that the neighboring towns have had success with these mixed-use type of developments and are considered a positive asset to their town. On a side note tonight, the Planning and Zoning Commission must also keep in mind other types of mixed-use developments as discussed tonight at the general appointment, and also the proposed affordable senior housing also on Route 25. But clearly tonight, Mr. Chairman of the commission, is to consider what is before the commission. But we must keep in mind what we heard tonight and what we heard earlier from the senior housing. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Thank you, Rick. We're gonna go to the public now. If there are any members of the public that would like to comment on these proposed rule changes, please make yourself known.
I'll go.
Mr.
Good
Solly.
evening, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Kevin Soley. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut with Soley Engineering. We've had the pleasure of working on a potential mixed-use project on Main Street, on the southern end of Main Street. And one of the members of that project team actually submitted a letter for the record. Hans Schulman submitted a letter with a number of comments. I actually wanted to kind of talk about those items and then talk about, so just some other items in the regulation that I had seen. First, I want to thank the commission for taking on this application and proposing this. I think it is a very great, it's a great thing to be considering to modify the regs to allow for this. I think has been identified in the POCD and a lot of previous discussions. Diversity of housing options is important, and I think this is something that can help not only encourage economic investment and development in the community, but it can also address some of the existing facilities in town where there may be a legal occupation for this exact type of thing, and whether it's grandfathered in or not. But so just briefly, so Hans Schulman had submitted a letter, and I kind of wanted to run through some of those components and talk about that. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Actually, I'm not sure if I'd be able to be made a presenter. I'll just thank you. So some of the images that you're going to see on the screen, here we go, are going to be kind of representative of a potential mixed-use development in town, assuming that this regulation is adopted. I'm going to touch through this and Hans letter, and then I'm going to just point to a couple specific items or sections of the regulations that Bill just presented, where there'd be some minor tweaks to accommodate some of these suggestions. So first, there was a comment about the residential density should be maximized, or a 50-50 split. We've looked at a couple different ways where we think that it may be beneficial to provide a little bit more for the residential, simply because if you're stacking, if you look at a development and you're just stacking residential over commercial, part of the regulation right now talks about that you want to separate the uses between the access between commercial and residential. And if you do that and you dedicate area on the ground floor for lobby or an access that's separate from the commercial space, that has to count towards the residential square footage. By doing that, you're essentially you'd have to reduce the amount of square footage on the second floor. So we think the commission should consider allowing maybe 60-40 from residential to commercial to take that into consideration. Additionally, with that, if for our project, we're looking at potentially providing some covered walkways or even some outdoor amenity space where it could be, an outdoor patio seating for a restaurant or something like that. And technically that doesn't count as floor area if it's not fully enclosed by four walls. So if we had a covered area that was, within the limits of the building overall footprint, but not enclosed commercial space, that would also inhibit our ability to meet a 50-50 mix, because we couldn't count that covered walkway or outdoor covered patio area as commercial space by definition. So we'd respect the commission to possibly consider changing that to 60-40 instead of 50-50. The current reg talks about complying with the existing building height, which is 35 feet. We do think the commission may want to consider allowing for a little bit of a higher building building height, we think 45 feet would be more appropriate, just because when you look at ceiling heights, if we wanted to potentially provide a loft space in a second floor apartment, there's two components to that. It's actually, that would technically meet, a loft would actually meet the definition of an additional floor. So we'd hope that the commission could consider allowing, instead of 2.5 floors, 3 floors of occupied space, because if we were to propose a loft, that would technically meet the definition of an additional floor. And then I think as we were looking at possibly providing that as an amenity to some of these units, that would require a little bit more of a taller building height. And I think the design, the building design associated with that, while it could look really, really nice with some nice tower elements, having some additional height would give some additional flexibility from an aesthetic design standpoint. One of the other comments was, and I know this was discussed actually at the last hearing when the commission was considering the regulation before it came before a formal application, and there was discussion about ground floor apartments. Rather than having all units above commercial space, we think the commission should consider having, a mixed-use development, having it residential units with commercial space, where you could potentially have ground floor apartments that did not face Route 25, but if you could take advantage of topography such as Bart Center, where Aubuchon Hardware went, there's a lower level to that facility that doesn't face the road and isn't visible from the road, and that space could potentially be converted to apartments. Additionally, for the project that we're considering on the south end of Route 25, the topography itself lends itself to provide for some ground level access, which would actually be a basement unit, but it would be, at grade. Route 20, in this image, Route 25, let me just turn my laser pointer on. In this image, Route 25 would be out here, so that this would be, almost a basement level, which would access the rear, not face Route 25, so you wouldn't actually see it. We think that's something that the commission may want to consider to allow ground or basement level apartments. There was discussion about the overall size of units, and I know the regulations now restrict that to a maximum of 1,000 square feet. We think the commission should consider probably 1,250 square feet as a maximum size. There's been, as Rick Schultz just mentioned, Newtown allows a maximum of 1,500 square foot. If a developer wants to potentially try to build a little bit of a larger unit to entice a better tenant or something like that, I certainly don't think the commission wants to discourage that, and I think it would be reasonable to allow for a little bit of a larger unit size. There's a little bit of a contradictory language in the regulations regarding design. In section in section 8 of the regulation, the proposed regulation, the design, it says full pitch roof shall be required. But then in 10 under utilities, it says rooftop mechanical equipment shall be hidden and screened from ground view from all sides. If you require a fully pitched roof, you can't have rooftop units. So we would simply suggest that the commission allow mansard roofs, because then you could design a building with a mansard roof. You could provide that rooftop mechanical equipment. You could screen it from the ground or from anywhere else. And this also potentially helps with building height calculations. So we would just recommend changing number 8 under that to say full pitch roofs can be encouraged, but I don't think you should make it a requirement, because I think it restricts the ability to have some flexibility from a design standpoint. That would also then require that all mechanical units be located on the ground, which I think would create not necessarily the best visual aesthetic if we can actually put those up above and have them screened as part of a building construction. And then one of the other recommendations that Hans had recommended was having a waiver provision built into the reg, where the commission could kind of consider enhanced design or anything like that to potentially waive some of these requirements. That's actually a precedent the commission has. In your excavation permit regulations, you have the ability to waive certain requirements, provided that an applicant can demonstrate, superior design or something like that. I think the commission may want to consider something like that. And then, I think lastly, one of the concerns about the unit mix and the 10% 2-bedroom units, I think that there was, a lot of the data. I think Mr. Agresta said it great. Once you get to a 3-bedroom unit, that's when you have the potential to have more of an impact on school children. And I think, during an informal discussion earlier this evening, we provided some data based on a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom mix, and the actual impact to the school systems is far less than what I think is, the fear that exists that a 2-bedroom unit could result in a lot of school kids. I don't think that's the case. And I think especially with the advent of a lot more working from home, there's a real need and a desire for someone who lives in an apartment to have a separate, segregated, designated room that can be a home office that's not necessarily going to result in, several children living there or having an impact on the school system. So I think that the commission may want to consider a more advantageous split for 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom units instead of only capping the 2 bedrooms at 10%. I just don't know if you'll get the economic investment and the utilization for this type of mixed use investment if you limit and restrict applicants and developers to only have allowed up to 10% 2 bedrooms. I think the commission should strongly consider a higher percentage, and I'd probably say maybe 65-35 or 60-40, at a minimum 50-50. But allowing only 10% 2 bedrooms, I think that just really potentially discourages the widespread use or application of this mixed use regulation. I think that's it. I think we can certainly go through the regulation in detail, but I think I've touched on a lot of the components that I think the commission should consider making some modifications. So I'd be happy to answer any questions the commission may have, but I'm happy to hear, other comment on the application.
Thank you, Mr. Soley. I think after hearing the luxury apartment presentation, you make some good points. I mean, we originally wanted this regulation to allow for strip malls that are underutilized in town to spruce themselves up and to bring some other uses, residential, obvious. But it seems like the regulations may be a little too restrictive. If that's what's being built around town, what we saw in luxury apartments, why would we? I think we may be restricting our regulations just a little too much and putting our landowners or our landlords in town at a disadvantage to other developers that are going to be coming in down the road. Just my 2 cents. Is there any other members of the public that would like to comment tonight?
Robert Westland, I would like to comment. Being that we're, testing the waters out with this first phase, the 35-foot requirement, 50-50, I think is a good start, with the residential on the second floor only. This is a shakedown for us. This is new for us. So I feel like being a little more restrictive in the beginning may be a good idea. And with the exception of the mansard type roof, I absolutely agree with Mr. Soley on that. I think that should be a consideration.
Okay, any other members of the public? I mean, we'll have more time to talk about this as a commission when we do deliberation. Any other members of the public? I believe there is someone, but we're not getting any audio. Is Mr. Sherman's trying to speak? You are. I see your lips moving, but I don't hear anything. Still don't hear anything. Oh, you want to try to call in? All right. I think you're muted on your call now.
Your computer.
Am I muted now?
No, you're good.
Okay, now you can hear me.
Got you.
Yeah.
Okay, I apologize for that. I wanted Kevin to do the presentation because you can see that I'm technically not as adept as he is, but he did a great job. The only thing that he missed that I wanted him to comment on is the affordable unit rents that the commission had put into the regulation, that the utility should be part of the rent. That is not, I don't believe that is required by the regulation for affordable rents. And we have all the apartments separately metered so that the tenants, as usual, as the standard, pay the utility directly. The other thing that the commission should be aware of is that we want to be competitive with the surrounding community. And we're at a disadvantage if some of these regulations, as the chairman mentioned, are not taken into account. We will be at a competitive disadvantage, and we will not be able to attract the people to Monroe that we want to attract. And we're trying to attract a younger demographic that wants a more luxury type of apartment, that wants amenities. And the problem with amenities is those amenities have to be located on the first floor, and those amenities take away from the commercial space. So the 50-50 split for access purposes, for amenity purposes, for a lot of different reasons wouldn't be possible if we count those amenities towards the residential. If we make the amenities or any of the common space common and don't count it towards anything, then we perhaps could achieve the 50-50 split. But we're asking for a 60-40 split. We want to create an active, what I call an active ecosystem, which is, we want to create activity. We feel that having activity at the center will attract commercial tenants, and local tenants is what we're hoping for. So we're hoping for the activity of a residential community will attract commercial tenants to what would otherwise be a strip mall type space. And I think it'll enhance the ability for the other commercial strip mall centers to attract other local tenants as well. We want that retail or the residential activity to enhance the commercial input of the town, if you will. So, and by the way, our development is an owner-occupied development. We're not going anywhere. We're not in this town to develop and then leave, or we want to live in this development. We want this development to be part of Monroe. We want to be a part of Monroe. We want to enhance the development so that not only is it's better for Monroe, but it's better for us. We have employees that live in Monroe. They want their children to live in Monroe. So this is a Monroe-centric development. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other members of the community that would like to make a comment? All right, then I'm going to go back and poll the commissioners again. As you know, there are interested parties in the community that may be wanting to go forward with a mixed use application for a true mixed use. I mean, we saw earlier the luxury apartment application is pushing the mixed use definition. Obviously, it would not fit under these regulations. There would have to be another regulation or a overview for that use. However, once again, I'm going to poll the commissioners if you have any questions for Mr. Soley. Commissioner Maini.
No.
Commissioner Condon?
No questions.
Okay, Commissioner Ambrosi.
I just have a couple questions, but I want to relay them back to Rick.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead, Leon.
So you reached out, well, you looked into Newtown and you looked into where Trumbull. What is their minimum square footage over there?
Trumbull is 900 and up to 1250 for a 2-bedroom.
Okay. How about Newtown?
Newtown, this goes with a maximum 1,500, and that is excessive. And they've indicated that to me.
And what's their percentage ratio between mixed use and residential?
All of the towns are 50-50.
Okay. So
Well, Newtowns is not 50-50. Newtowns is 100% residential.
okay. But don't they have some mixed use stuff over there they want to put for up in Fairfield Hills?
That's a different animal altogether.
What's that?
In Fairfield Hills, they haven't finalized the language yet. It was just a general referendum question.
Oh, so they don't have any regulations on it yet?
No, it was the first step.
So by limited to 1,000 square foot, does that make it hard to rent these or anything like that if it's a 2-bedroom?
What you're hearing, Leon, is the market is suggesting a higher area. The market is very hot right now, and they can get a better rent.
Right. So if we're going by percentage wise, then if you put 1,200 square feet in there, then they're going to have less apartments. If they put a couple of 1,200 square foot one in there, because they could put 500 square foot, just little ones, you'll have more apartments, right? Is that the way? So it really, when we put 1,000 square feet on it, what is our reasoning for doing 1,000 square feet?
No, it was the size. We didn't want to encourage multiple people living in there. It's all about.
No, I understand that, but I mean, that's something that we couldn't control in the first place. So, I mean, somebody could put in a 1-bedroom, they could put 3 people living in a bedroom, you know, like they could put bunk beds in there. I mean, that's something that I don't think that we could control. I mean, I don't think that the square footage makes a difference about how many people you're going to have living in there. If it's a 2-bedroom, it's a 2-bedroom, right?
But I think the 1,500 square feet raises a red flag. I think.
No, I got that. I just think that the 1,000, I thought we were at one time we were at 1,200. Now we moved it down to 1,000. I just want to know what the reasoning is why we went to 1,000, because if we went to 1,000, we're just making, if we go to 1,200, we're making less units, or they could put in more little units at 500 square feet units. They could put in like 10 compared to if it was 1,200, they would be able to put in like 7. So what's the difference when we change the footage?
No, it's all about the market. It's all market driven, Leon.
That's what I'm saying. But what we're hearing is that mostly the market driven is like, you're telling me 1,200 to 1,250, right?
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay. That's all I wanted to bring out to the commission and to see what their opinion on that was.
Well, that's market rated to profitability.
which is true, but I mean, profitability is mean that we're going to be able to have higher end apartments here, no?
No, right. It depends on what market you're after. There's
Right.
definitely a higher end market that's hot today. Larger
Right.
units dictate somewhat of that. Smaller size units obviously will not rent it for as much. You know, we're not Manhattan. And,
Right.
And so if you're after more of affordable type housing as well, you kind of push it that way. If you go to the higher end, you're more likely going to get the majority of the projects are going to be the higher.
Right. And so what are we looking for in this town? Higher end or the lower end?
That's up to you all.
Well, Leon, the majority of the commissioners at our last meeting wanted to go for the lower end. That's why the language is in there. I was not one of them. However, that's the way it went. I'm not sure why they wanted to restrict it to 1,000.
Well, that's why I wanted to poll the commission and ask why the 1,000 square foot came up instead of 1,200 square feet, because we're still having the same amount of percentage of floor area compared to commercial, compared to residential. So I'm trying to poll the commission here and why we ended up at 1,000, because we didn't really get that deep into it, because we took a vote and everybody went to 1,000, but I never really got the answer why we're at that number.
Let's be clear, we did a consensus. We didn't take a vote.
Right.
We did a consensus, right? And then we wrote this regulation. But I want to poll, why did we end up at 1,000? What's the reasoning behind 1,000?
Are there any commissioners that would like to keep it at 1,000? Would like to speak?
Commissioner Schneider, we were trying to keep out what we were calling riffraff as far as having multiple beds in one room, because the room was big enough for that. You know, if you have a 15 by 15 living room, which is pretty standard for apartment, right? That's 225 feet. If you do a 15 by 15 bedroom and another 15 by 15 bedroom and a 15 by 15 kitchen, that's still only 900 feet. So how big do you need these rooms to be for a maximum of 2 bedrooms? 1,250, that's crazy. That's a house.
I'd like to say something to that.
Okay, Dominic, go ahead.
I really think we're too restrictive. I think we are followers. First of all, we push developers out to other towns. We're following, we're looking at what other towns are doing, and then we try to catch up. So I think we should not be thinking as developers. Let the developers, I mean, we got to have some regulation, yes, but let the developers feel the market. They know better than us. At the same time, we are losing a lot of potentials to other towns that are not as restrictive. And so we should think about it before we start putting all these limitations. We heard for some people that want to come in and bring business in, and that they're telling us we should read those signs.
Or what do you want to be as far as Monroe? Do you want to be Newtown? Do you want to be Trump? It's mostly residential.
Yeah, we want to be competitive so that we are not.
How is saying 1,000 instead of 1,200, which we can always change, right? This is just our first phase and new to Monroe, not being competitive because somebody can get a bigger apartment somewhere in Newtown?
It should not be. This is our first phase. We should have been doing this before. Look, we're just too restricted. That's all I can tell you.
And Ron, on your thing, we have people that are trying to put mixed use development in this town. It's not something that we're just setting up regulation and trying to attract people into here. We have people that actually want to do this. And I just want to come up to the reasoning, because you can have 1,000, you can have 500, you can have 750, but it makes no difference on how many people is going to live in there. All the difference is going to make is what they're going to attract and how much they're going to get to rent these apartments. in what do you call it? So it's like somebody can go in there and put in 10,500, or they can put in, I don't know, 1,200, and then you're only going to have 4 of them rented compared to having 10 of them rented. So I just want to know where we came up with 1,000 from, because I don't think it really makes a difference on the square footage. I mean, I understand if you make it 1,500, if you make it 2,000, they make 3 or 4 bedrooms in here, then you get that. But I don't think that, I mean, I have an in-law setup that's 900 square feet. It's a 1 bedroom, it has a kitchen, it has a little living room, just a little living room, and a little dinette area for my in-laws to live. And like I said, I had at our one time, it was 800 square feet you could have, but when the fire marshal came in, he had to prove it because of the hallway. But I'm just saying, so I have one in my own house that is 900 square feet, and it's 1 bedroom, 1 little living room, and 1 little dining area, and 1 little kitchen and a bathroom. And so, and it's not huge. And believe me, it's not huge. It's a nice setup. It's well done. It's for my in-laws when they come up from South Carolina. But I have one, so I know how big it is. And I know that an extra 200 square feet is just going to add on 1 more bedroom, and it's not going to make it any bigger than it is.
Well, if it was 800 square feet. Ryan at all. Ryan, do you have any thing? Do you feel like we're being too restrictive on this and to our already landlords in town?
I mean, I'm still very much for the 50-50 split. I'd be okay with upping the square footage, because as long as we're keeping within that 50-50. And the more I think about it, I mean, you know, if somebody's looking to come to town and they're going to cram a bunch of people into a small apartment, are they going to spend a lot of money for a bigger apartment to do that? Or are they just going to spend money on a small apartment and cram everyone into that? I mean, I don't really think we need to be that concerned of it. I know it is something that has come up. I'd be okay with upping the square footage a little bit. Definitely not 15. I'd be okay with 12. And then some of the other points that were made in the letter, I'm okay with covered walkways for commercial space. I feel like we do have some of that in town already. And that's about it, though. Some of the other stuff I'd rather wait on, like the 3 floors and all that. That's my opinion.
How do you feel about ground floor apartments, a couple of ground floor apartments, if the site is amenable to that?
My concern with that is the entranceways are going to be individual entranceways to the apartment, to each apartment building, because then, as mentioned before, I'm afraid we do get that kind of motel look. But if it's, you know, if there is a central entrance, my concern last time when we talked about it was that I thought it was going to take away from the commercial use. But I think I could be swayed to be okay with that, thinking about some of the units in town that need the benefit. But I don't know if we need it for this right now, because, you know, the ones that were brought up aren't in this area that we're looking at right now. Right, Bart Center is not covered in this property or in this area at the moment. And I'd be okay with considering the waiver provision, because we did say we wanted to do this as kind of a starting off point. So it might be good if, you know, we are kind of testing the waters to have ability to adjust when appropriate.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Ron, how do you feel about allowing the walkways, or in other words, changing the 50-50 to a 60-40?
I mean, wasn't this initially started? Well, first of all, it's trying to keep us from having to do certain things in town, but aren't we trying to bring business into town too?
Yes.
I mean, that's the whole point. Are we restricting business coming to town by being 50-50, or are we restricting, are we allowing more residential than we are business? I don't know. This is something that has got to be debated between everybody. I don't want to be the restrictive part, but at the same time, I'm trying to make sure we don't just open up and change the town completely and have everybody pissed off, besides the people who are making the money. This is a big change for Monroe. Going up in square footage. All right. So, I mean, I like what Soli was saying about the third floor, even though Ryan said he didn't like it, just because of the loft part. If you did something like that, especially if the look is there, but is the look going to be right? I don't know. I don't know how I feel. I'm kind of back and forth.
A loft doesn't necessarily have to be considered a full story. That's what the half story is about. So it all depends on how big the loft is. The loft is only 50% of the floor. That's only half a floor.
Right. And if we're not allowing the back, if we're not allowing first floor, then that gives it a little bit more of an option for some people, which would look good.
Right. You could have a 1.5 story apartment.
So I'd like to make one more comment.
Is that if somebody building like
we're not seeing the writing on the wall. I don't know if you are aware that business in Monroe is suffering, and you really got to look at what's going on around you. Now you're going to open up the mixed use, but you're still going to put more restrictions that it makes it harder for the people that are doing business to go any further than what we have. So we really got to wake up a little bit.
Bruno, haven't heard from you lately. Well, this is a debate. This is the debate. This is our chance to talk about this.
Yes. So, all right. The 1,000 square feet is still a very good sized apartment. However you break it down, it's still a good sized apartment. I feel that we shouldn't get influenced by upcoming projects, no matter what they are. If you feel that 1,000 square feet works for you, then you know that's fine. To me, I understand where Leon's coming from. If you have 1,000 square feet, you could have 2,500. Yeah, whatever. If I have a 1,200 square foot apartment, that's a really big apartment, and I understand the influence comes because there's a potential of a luxury apartment or a luxury facility coming in. So I understand where the influence is coming from. Some of, you know, for the section that we're putting mixed use in, I don't even know if you could fit 1,200 square feet and get, if you do 1,000, you might be able to get 2. If you get 1,200, you might be able to you'll get 1 and then a really small one. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm still comfortable at 1,000 square feet, personally myself. The fact of attracting a business, I mean, Dominic, come on, man. I mean, it's not about knowing that Monroe's struggling in business wise. It's kind of the whole country. I mean, that's common sense amongst the whole country that brick and mortar is struggling. It's not just Monroe. So I'm still a 50-50. I'm still 50-50. If we want to do comparisons with other towns and other towns are doing 50-50, that's kind of where I'm at. 1,500 square feet for an apartment kind of seems like a lot to me. I would not be in favor of that at all. The covered walkways, I could see that. The waiver, I'm 100% in favor of. I think that's a great way to listen to other ideas. when they come before you and make your changes at that point. So I am 100% in favor of the waivers. I do not like the ground floor apartments for multiple reasons. But that's just where I stand. I mean, if we went to 1,100 square feet, I could, okay, 1,200, it's not killing me either, but I don't know. I'm still really comfortable at 1,000, and that's just one, and I'm off my soapbox.
Well, it's not a soapbox. I mean, we need the commission's input.
Okay, that was my.
I agree. 50 should stay 50-50, I think. And I don't like the first floor yet. I like the waivers. I like to where if somebody has a really good idea and it just happens to fit. I think Kevin showed us a picture of an L-shaped building, and you said if 25 was at the tip of one and you're all the way in the back, and something like that gets proposed to us and we decide to approve it, that's great with a waiver. And if we can't be competitive because we're not square feet, even though we think 1,000's good enough to go up, is that really going to make a difference? I don't know.
Will, what does the waiver provision include? Could that include square footage? Could that include 2.5 stories? I'm not really. I know the waiver we have for excavation doesn't. I don't know how that would fit in here.
Yeah, the waiver, to add a waiver revision and maybe some of these others are substantive items that you would either have to go back to subcommittee or just have staff work on some options and come back to the full commission in a workshop, and we could put this hearing at bay for a while. Because you'd have to work out the criteria for waivers, because waivers generally in Connecticut statutes are not really supportive. But if you have good criteria, you can have waivers. So you got to set it up, what it's for, what the test is, what you demonstrate, and then what are the rationale the commission would have to find in order to grant that waiver. It can't just be you can waive whatever you want.
So they have to be delineated, there has to be rationale, and there have to be limits.
Well, there has to be some aspect of what that means and how far you can go with it and what findings you have to make in order to grant them. Like for instance, you have the waiver provisions for the encroachments in the landscape buffer, and there's provisions that you got to provide you got to show why, you got to indicate why you can't do it, and then you got to provide an alternative buffer plan which achieves similar provisions. So you got to, it's not just dismissing a requirement or buying into a new thing that somebody just brought to your attention.
I would suggest stay away from the waiver.
The waivers are dangerous.
Well, it seems like we don't have a consensus here. And it also seems like that we have some commissioners that would like more than minor changes to this draft. So I don't see how we can close this hearing tonight.
Can I say a few things, Mike?
Yes.
All right. I mean, we already have a fairly thin commercial corridor, and that doesn't need any additional eroding. As I believe this will eventually pose a serious deficiency in tax revenue, especially if we overburden our school system any further with additional students. Something must have got lost in the sauce as far as the size, because at no point when I think we set up the 1,000 square foot deal was I ever insinuating I was looking for low-end housing. I don't think that 1,000 square foot apartment is in consistency with low-end housing in any way, shape, or form. I thought it was a good balance of space for the first phase of our mixed-use text amendment. I think 1,000 square feet for a 2-bedroom unit is a good size. I mean, would I be open to moving on it a little bit further? Probably, but I think 1,000 square feet works. As far as the waiver, I'm good with that. The covered walkways, I'm good with. And like you said, I think we could probably polish this up and come to an agreement on this fairly soon. That's all.
All right, Leon, I just wanted to ask you, what do you think? Should we go back to the subcommission with this?
Well, Mike, what I think we should do is that we need, I guess we can go back to the subcommission with it and then bring it back to the commission. But I don't think that the next one that we do, I think that we should hash it all out before we bring it to a public hearing, because, you know, like I wasn't in agreement with some of it, because I just don't know that, you know, if we're going to develop, I think that we want to do the right development, and I don't want to do the wrong development. And then if we get to do the wrong development, then we have to go back at these regulations and change them again. I want to try this out for the first time and see how this works. But I just don't want to get into a point to where, like I said before, if we have a 50-50 split on what the residential and what the commercial is going to be, no matter what they build there, I mean, I understand going big, like having a huge apartment or a huge thing that's 2,000 or 3,000 square feet. Yeah, you could do that, but they only can go so many they could put in there. So I don't think, you know, as far as the developers, they may want to have a little bit more, because the value of the rents are going to be more. The value that they're going to attract is going to be more. They're going to attract probably bigger business people, because the apartments are going to go for so much money. So, I mean, I don't think the square footage makes a big difference, as long as it's not a huge difference. And so, I don't know, you could ask Bruno what he thinks we should bring it back to the subcommittee or not. And then we'll go from there.
I don't know. If we bring it back to the subcommittee, I kind of feel like I'm on an island by myself, and you and Mike are in agreements with each other, which is fine. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But then it's going to come back to the full commission, and then what?
We should poll the commission and see which way we're going to go here with the square footage, so that we can get a regulation that is pretty much that we could write. I think that's your only concern, Bruno. And so if that's your only concern, then let's pull that, and then we'll bring it back to the subcommittee and go over that. I mean, is that your only concern? Is that?
No, it's definitely not my only concern. I mean, I stated that I'm for waivers. I'm for the mansard roof. I'm for the covered walkways, not the first floor apartments. I mean, I said a lot of things. I mean, if we want to, if we're so stuck between 1,000 and 1,200, does 1,100 not make any sense? Would everybody be okay with 1,100?
Yep. It might be a compromise.
Yeah, no, I have that's a compromise. I don't think that the square footage, unless we get really way deep into it, I think that if you increase the square footage anyway, the less apartments you're going to have. There's no doubt about that. There is not, because our minimum we have down here is 500. Imagine how many apartments you could put in for 500. But I don't think a developer would want to do that, because if a developer was going to do that, he's not going to attract. A 500 square foot apartment is totally different than a 1,200 square foot apartment, as far as, Leon,
you're looking at it from the development standpoint. There's also other businesses on this road that can only do so much. We're trying to help the.
And I
have. You don't have all that right now. You don't have all that. Right now, we're trying to help the businesses that are on this road as well. We can't just always worry about the new builder coming in. We have to worry about the businesses that we currently have in this town. And some of the businesses that we have in this town can only support so much. So if I have a mobile station and I have 1,000 square feet and I put one apartment, or I put 2 500s, I don't know. I don't build apartments, so I don't know what benefits me better. But if if we say, I don't know. I want to help both ends. I don't want to just worry about the new builder coming in.
No, I understand it, but we want to redevelop Main Street. Main Street is a disaster. And we all know that. Route 25 is a disaster.
Yes and no. Yes and no, though. It's not a complete disaster.
Well, there's certain parts of it that is nice. We have some good developments that went in there.
That takes away the complete disaster part.
It does. But we have a lot of bad sites on Route 25 that aren't being developed.
And Rome wasn't built in a day there, Chief. I mean,
all that. But that's why I think we are the Planning and Zoning Commission. And that's why I think that we have to get a regulations that's right, that's going to attract developers that want to put in higher end stuff or put in a mixed use with higher end stuff or this and this and that. But I'm saying that.
I don't want to forget about the people that are in this town already.
I have that. And I understand all
My
that.
main concern right now today is I don't want to worry about the people. I don't want to forget about the people that are in this town. We're only going up to Knollwood. So there's only one development that we're talking about. Up till Knollwood, there's only one spot that a new development could be. After that, it's all pre-developed stuff. It's already developed.
No, I don't really think so. Will, how much vacant land is on Main Street up to Knollwood?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's not very much.
Like around about. Is there development that we can put? Is there open spaces on Main Street up to Knollwood?
I'd have to look at the map if you give me a second.
Maybe
Oh,
three.
so, Rick, don't you have those numbers?
Oh, he's asking about undeveloped land.
Oh, undeveloped land. Okay.
Yeah.
Undeveloped?
Give me a second.
I'm just talking about to Knollwood.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you have a bunch of undeveloped land, obviously, at the southern end of town. Almost all the properties from Victoria Drive and even a little bit north of that, south, are all undeveloped. That's quite a bit of property. That includes the properties on Victoria, fronting on Main Street on Victoria Drive. Those are all B districts. That's a lot of undeveloped land, but that's all rare undeveloped land in one area of town. As you go up from there to Knollwood, almost everything has something on it. There's a few little parcels, which is like, Pond View. And then there's Knollwood in there. And then there's the few parcels in the area that we just rezoned to B2, which is only like 3-4 acres. But almost everything else is pretty much developed or has some kind of development on it.
Yeah. Mike, can I make a suggestion?
Yeah, Rick.
Yeah, the waiver provision, let Will and I take a crack at it and show it to you. We're working out right away with the proper criteria.
All right, then do you want to close the hearing and then we can?
No, don't close the hearing.
No, we're not closing the hearing.
Yeah, no. Keep it on.
Don't close it, no.
I mean,
Because we
I
can
would
do
suggest, the commission, if they want to work out some of these issues again, that we adjourn the hearing and that we schedule a work session with the commission that is not a hearing, and we talk about these issues. We'll have some options drafted out, and you can talk about that. And then if we come up to some kind of consensus of substantive changes, we can circulate to the public anything revised and reconvene at a later date the hearing.
I agree with Will 100%. A work session to get all this ironed out is perfect. Great job, Will.
All right.
Yeah, we're going to do the full commission, Mike, then.
We'll adjourn the hearing and then we'll schedule a workshop for the full commission to go over these details within the next 10 days, hopefully.
Okay.
Well, thank you all.
Are you meaning to have the work session at the next meeting?
Well, we might need to do it before the next meeting.
Or we can't. How are we going to have a meeting before the meeting?
a work session.
Oh, yeah.
No,
well,
the
I'm in a
work session would have to
at
be the day. The work session would have to be the day of the meeting. We have to meet like an hour earlier or something.
Well, it
Oh,
could
we
also
could
be
do-
during the
sure.
meeting. It could be during the regular meeting. It just would not be a public hearing portion. That's all.
All right, then let's do that.
Like we do with the regulations at the end of the meeting.
We want to have it an hour before, Bruno?
No,
I would think, I think we need time, so I would think you would want to do it beforehand, but it's, I don't know, either way, it's going to be a forever long meeting, so whatever.
Well, that would have to be another meeting. We'd have to publish that meeting separately then. Again, I was mentioning during the meeting, we'll set time in the meeting for it, but it just wouldn't be a hearing.
All right.
We
Let's
have
do that.
what do we have coming up, Will? If that, is it gonna,
Well, the next meeting might be a little tough, but I'll have to go back and look at the agenda.
could we have it on a separate date like Bruno says, because we're doing it on Go Meeting anyway?
You could schedule a special meeting for it if you want.
I prefer to schedule a separate meeting for it. That would just be my opinion, have the whole commission there and iron it out so that we can bring this before everyone and we're in full agreements and we don't have to go through this.
Right, and
That's just my.
I know, I agree with Bruno on that. I think that we should have a separate meeting just to go over this and hash this out. You and Rick could get the other stuff together, pass it out to us, or send it out to us on our email, and then we could sit down and go over the whole thing.
To make that fully work, we really need everyone to commit to come to whenever that is.
Yeah, we'll do that next.
They'll be available.
Poll the commissioners for dates.
Next Thursday?
I could do next Thursday.
I can do next Thursday as well.
I'm good with it.
I could do next Thursday.
I cannot do next Thursday.
Thanks.
Well, what day are you available, Mike?
Any other day.
Monday.
Do they have it ready by? Would that give Rick and Will enough time?
No.
No.
How about Wednesday? Is everybody available Wednesday?
I could do Wednesday because I don't think
I can actually do Wednesday.
All right. So
Yeah,
then
we can't do the 11th.
We can't do Wednesday, guys. Actually, it's a holiday, the town hall.
Yeah, Veterans Day.
Oh.
Town hall's closed.
All right. How
How about
Tuesday?
Friday? How about Friday?
13th?
No.
How do we do? How about Tuesday? Can you get it done by Tuesday, Will?
I can't do it Tuesday, and I can't get it done by Tuesday either.
What about the following Monday, the 9th?
Okay. How about the following Monday night before our meeting?
Or not the 9th?
Any of those nights.
What are the topics that we're going to discuss?
Well, we're going to discuss
Only this.
Yeah, just this.
Only this.
Right.
Only
just
this.
Mixed use, just mixed use.
And we're grown men. We could do this right
We
now.
could do this in a half hour on the regular meeting.
Right. We don't need
We've
a
been
whole.
on it. We've been on it for 45 minutes today.
Yeah, but let's just bring up each point. Square feet. Who's for 1,200? Who's for 11? Who's for 10? Let's do it.
I'm in for whatever.
There are parts of this that Rick and Will have to work on.
We could do it. We would have to leave out the waiver part and consider maybe looking
Right.
back at a separate text amendment.
Right.
Right?
And the other,
Right.
Try for dates offline.
What's that?
We'll try to get dates together offline, not right now.
No, not the date. But what if we were to do go over most of this and leave off the waiver part till at another time and consider doing our edits and just voting on this now?
Then we might as well just do it at the next meeting, and then that gives Rick and Will enough time, and we'll just set time aside. I mean,
All right.
we're already 4
That's
hours
fine.
every meeting, and
Okay.
All right, how does everyone okay with the next meeting?
Yes.
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 All right.
Yeah.
And we'll have
Just wonderful.
we'll have drafted up options, and then we can vote on each of the options separately. And then we can vote together, or we can discuss each option separately and then vote together. And we'll close the hearing next meeting. So at
Sounds
this
good.
point, we'll leave the hearing open.
We will attempt to close the hearing next meeting.
Correct.
With or
Yeah, it
without.
depends on how substantive any changes might be.
All right, so this public hearing is hereby adjourned. So we have number 10 on the item is on the agenda is a site development plan, SDP 2020-03, file number 143. That's 630 Main Street. Is this noticed, Ryan?
No.
No.
No? All right. This is a site development plan permit amendment modification application, which is proposing to change a use. It's a change of a use to a liquor store. It's L&S Glenrose Spirit Shop. Do we have anyone for a presentation tonight?
Hi, my name is Larry Cass, 487 Monroe Turnpike, owner, Glenrose Spirit Shop. I didn't know if you have all the plans in front of you. I did drop off 11 sets.
Larry, I'm going to put it up on the screen for you too, okay?
Thank you very much, Georgia. I do want to say, I know it's a long night, commissioners. Thank you very much for your patience. Thank you very much to Will and Georgia for helping me through this transition. We have been in Monroe since 1972 on the 111 side. This plan is to occupy a space. And, you know, there were a couple of things tonight. Activity breeds activity for Mr. Soley and sprucing up the strip malls. Well, I certainly want to bring the brand that I represent and my wife represents and all my great staff. We did this a long time ago in Shetland, 5 years ago. We cannibalized our own sales because it's only about 9 minutes apart. And what I was doing was just planting seeds because I knew I could grow both businesses. And this is the exact same concept. To bring my customers from the Northbrook side, the 25 side, and in a very small spot, it's only 1,100 square feet. The rest of the building is vacant except for Sal's. Again, mostly COVID driven. So I am taking pretty much a big risk here. And what I want to do is bring the brand that I have to this side of town, to service customers on this side of town, to grow the business further, to you know, maybe capture some Newtown business and some Easton business and Trumbull business, which I do now in both my Monroe store and Shelton store. As you can see by the drawing, it was just recently lined, the entire plaza, with only Sal's being open. Joe Vole is the landlord, owner, and we have a vision to build this back up. You know, the tanning salon closed, the hair salon that I proposed to go into closed, the tile and bath place closed, the Fitness 4000 closed out front, and the other women's fitness closed. So, especially with having a restaurant base, I think once I get them in there once to shop, I think that they will be happily surprised at our selection, our service, and our prices. You know, my wife and I are the only owners of L&S, Larry and Stormy. I worked for Bob Hugler, who opened Glenroe in 1972. Glenroe stands for Glenn and Robert, his two sons. There's only been one other owner, Roy, who I bought the store from, my wife and I bought from in 2010. I actually worked there in high school many moons ago. So without boring you any further, I think our track record of being very charitable to the town of Monroe, you know, helping out both RNC and DNC and every church pretty much in the town, I was a master graduate in 1987. My mom taught at Chalk Hill. My father was a volunteer fireman. My brother was a volunteer fireman. I love Monroe, and it's in my blood, and I want to continue that passion and the service and the selection that we give. You're saying, well, 1,100 square feet. Well, we only have 1,600 square feet in Shelton, and I have no problem expressing my number. We're going to eclipse $1.4 million in 1,600 square feet this year. And that's strictly due to the fact that the brand has legs, it's growing, and I see the potential on the 25 side. You know, there are some moving pieces with warehouse trying to go to the other side of town. So I think there's a niche here, and I think I can fill it with your help.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Cass.
Thank you.
I'm going to poll the commissioners for any questions or comments. We'll start with Commissioner Mayne.
Larry, couple questions.
Yes.
You're only taking the one spot, is what you're saying?
Correct. The plan is down the road, so I'm only putting in freestanding racks. I'm not building a walk-in cooler. You know, this is kind of a low risk, high, you know, potential to take over the tanning salon. First right for the tanning salon, which is to the left as you look at it drawn. And that would, you know, obviously would be a just a point of clarification. This is an SEP, not an SDP. I would probably need an SDP to put in a walk-in cooler. So that's the future. But again, it's in a progress stage here.
Well, thanks for stealing my question, Larry.
Sorry, Bruno.
I mean, you're making me look bad here, but
sorry, Commissioner.
So that's kind of like where I'm at. Like, I don't know why. Like, Will, can you help me here? Like, why is this an SDP and not an SEP? Am I missing something?
It is an SEP. It's in the agenda minutes, agenda materials as an SEP. The box is clearly marked.
Oh, okay. So Will, you're on mute, bud.
Okay. The original site development was approved under a special exception permit like everything else in town. Was at one time, everything required a special exception permit. Several years back, the commission changed the zoning regulations and introduced a site development plan, which had uses that no longer required the SEP. Retail falls under that provision. The reason this is in front of you is because the type of retail that it is. And it is a liquor store, and part of the code in section 6.7 requires the commission, and under state statutes requires the commission to approve the location of alcohol sales and alcohol use. If this was a ground level permit, brand new off the ground, it would only have been a site development plan application along with the locational alcohol provisions. The reason on the application that the SEP is clicked because we're using the permit amendment modification to amend the standing permit that was gained a long time ago. Semantics is really all it is. And that's why there's not a requirement for a hearing, because technically it's permitted under the site plan provision.
Okay.
We're amending it and we're doing it faster, and it's half the price.
We're doing this, well, we're doing this so that we can change the use to be a liquor store. So that, I guess, for him to obtain a license there.
Well, you're approving the location as appropriate under your zoning regulations for the location of a liquor store. And the provisions in 6.7 require you to consider the proximity of this location to things such as places of worship, schools, and other frequented places by minors. And those are the considerations you need to put into it. If you recall, there used to be a limitation of proximity to other liquor stores, which you took out of the code a while ago.
Right.
You're really just determining the location being appropriate under those standards. And as part of that, that authorizes the zoning enforcement officer to sign the application that the applicant would make to the State Liquor Control Division for his liquor license.
So Larry, with this space, how much work do you need to do to get it ready? It's the same question that I asked the last person that came before us, so I'm just trying to be.
I can move in there tomorrow. All the chairs, it was a former hair salon. All the chairs have been removed. The electrical is appropriate. I positioned my floor plan so that the coolers are in appropriate spots. I have in storage right now wine racks. I have extra coolers. So for all intents and purposes, I could open tomorrow, realistically.
But you're not, so you have coolers, but you're not doing a walk-in cooler? Is that what you
Correct.
said?
Correct.
Okay,
so that requires
you still have
either.
you still have coolers, but you're just not going to have a walk-in cooler. I'm assuming that you have at your other locations.
Correct. So, you know, I don't want to go on the roof. I don't want to go outside with a, HVAC
Some sort
unit.
of unit,
Yes.
yeah. So you're move-in ready here, basically.
It's
Now,
beautiful.
The gym is closed, from what I'm
Correct.
understanding. So it's not a place that you would frequent a lot of minors. I mean, there's really nothing else open in that plaza that's in that section, right? Everything else that's open is pretty much on the other side.
Correct.
You know what, Larry? I'm good to go. I'm good, so I don't have any other questions.
Thank you.
Commissioner Condon.
I have no problem with this. I'm good.
Commissioner Ambrosi, any other questions?
No, you don't have a liquor license for this yet, right, Larry?
Nope. So the first step is to get approval from the commission, and then have a liquor application signed by the town clerk and the zoning enforcement officer. Once this is approved, and then Hartford determines suitability for the location.
Okay, that's all I got.
Commissioner Westland.
Well, Mr. Katz, you're a well-respected business, which is already in our community. That shopping center could certainly use the occupancy, and there's plenty of room for expansion, plenty of parking. How many square feet do you occupy over on 111 right now?
5,000.
5,000 feet. I didn't realize it was that big. Well, no, that's great. I have no further questions. Thanks.
Thank you.
Commissioner Schneider.
I have no questions either. I'm glad he's doing it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Panici.
I have no question.
Will, do you have any questions or comments to add?
No, I don't.
All right. I have no questions either, so we'll hereby close this hearing.
Do we have to make a motion?
If your consensus is that you don't need any more information, we can move on to the next item, and if you can take this back up in deliberations later on.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll close the hearing and then we can deliberate it on it in a few minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay. Thank you. That completes the hearings for tonight. Number 11 is the pending minutes. So we have the Planning and Zoning Commission October 22nd minutes. Does everyone have the minutes? Chair will entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from the Planning and Zoning meeting on October 22nd, 2020.
I have a motion. I need a second.
Second.
A motion and a second to call the roll. Are there any changes to the, or is there any discussion of the minutes?
No, I have no changes.
If there are no changes, then we'll call the roll. Mayini,
Yes.
Condon,
Yes.
Ambrosi,
Yes.
Westland,
Yes.
and O'Reilly, yes. I think that's all the commissioners that were on it.
Correct. 5-0,
Your
motion
heads
passed.
on you. Motion passes. Number 12, pending applications, deliberations, determination. So we have a pending application. We have the SCP Site Development Plan 2020-03, file number 1623A, 588 Pepper Street, AB Mechanical, owner applicant 588 Pepper Street. Whereas the Monroe Planning and Zoning Commission is considering an application for a special exemption permit. Whereas the commission has considered the proposal, opened on October the 1st, reconvened and closed on October the 22nd. Notice of public hearing was published in the Voices September the 16th and September the 23rd. Whereas notices were sent to abutting property owners. And let's see. There are some general provisions required. The zoning acceptance table has to be updated. A separate landscape island between the outdoor storage area and the facilities and the facility vehicle parking spaces has to be added. And there are certain housekeeping items that are delineated as well. A site stabilization and erosion control bond of $28,000 shall be provided. And I think those are all the salient points. So the chair will entertain a motion to accept SCP 2020-03 as drafted.
I make a motion to accept SCP 2020-03 file 1623A, 588 Pepper Street as drafted.
I have a motion and I have a second. Is there any discussion?
Commissioner Mayini has no discussion.
Hearing none, then I'm going to poll the commission to
hold on, Mike.
Approve. Mike. Poll the commission to approve SCP 2020-03.
Mike, Leon has a question. Leon has a question.
Go ahead, Leon.
What do we do about the storage there with we make it concrete or we made it asphalt?
No, we're allowing the heavy duty asphalt.
Okay. And we don't have any islands in the middle, right?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. All right. That's all I had to ask.
All right, so we're going to now poll the commission to approve SCP 2020-03 file number 1623A as drafted. Let me just see who is on this.
The regular commission.
Regular commissioners?
Yeah.
All right. And let's start with Commissioner Mayini.
Mayini, yes.
Commissioner Condon.
Condon, yes.
Commissioner Ambrosi.
No.
1, 2, 3. Commissioner Westland.
Westland, yes.
And O'Reilly is yes. The motion passes 4-1. Next item of business is we can deliberate on the site development plan that we just reviewed, SDP 2020-03, file number 143, which is 630 Main Street. I'll entertain a motion to approve the site development plan.
I make a motion to approve SDP 2020-03, file number 143, 630 Main Street.
I second.
I have a motion and I have a second. Is there any discussion before I take a vote? Then we'll poll the commission for a vote to approve SDP 2020-03.
Before you take that vote, can we get some clarification that that motion includes findings that this would not be in an area of impact to schools, churches, and places minor, and that the conditions would be obviously conditional on getting the state liquor license?
Thank you.
You want me to?
You just have to agree to that if that's what you agree to?
Yes.
I agree. Commissioner Mayini agrees to it.
Well, we'll poll the commission to accept the site development plan with those considerations I will just brought up. So, Mayini.
Yes.
Condon.
Yes.
Ambrosi.
Yes.
And Westland.
Westland, yes.
And O'Reilly, yes. The motion carries 5-0. Okay, we cannot deliberate on anything else from the agenda tonight. The other two hearings were left open. We have not had a regulation review amendment workshop session. However, Rob has been appointed to the regulation workshop. So it will not just be Leon and me and Bruno. We'll have another member and another voice. We have nothing to report from that session. There are no other correspondence that we haven't reviewed. I have no.
Mike, I have one thing.
Yes.
The zoning change, when are we voting on that?
Which zoning change?
Where we changed, where we waited for the write-up for the B1 zone?
No, we didn't have to. We already did that. We voted it in last week because we didn't change anything. Last meeting, we voted it in, right, Will?
That's correct.
So we don't need to
I
vote.
thought we were waiting for a write-up first.
No, that was on the one you just did. That was on the one you just did.
So maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, because the zoning one, remember we said we didn't change anything on it, so we were going to just approve it because we already had that draft already set up.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, my bad.
Okay. All right, so let's go to chairman's report. I have none. Commissioner's report. Do any of the commissioners have any information to bring forward?
No, sir.
No.
If not, then we'll go to land use staff report. So that would be Rick.
Will and I received the summary from Francisco on the public workshop. Francisco is moving forward, so we're going to have more meetings. So Will and I have to review the summary, and then we'll send that out to the commission.
Okay, thank you. So then we'll expect some information to be sent out on items that we need to review on the mixed use. When you get them, read them over, look them over, and expect to talk about them at the next meeting. So know what you want to do and know which way you want to go with those. So, because we will be taking votes at the next meeting. Well, that completes the business of the Planning and Zoning Commission. The chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and I have a second. We're going to adjourn.
I'm gonna miss you guys until 2 weeks.
Everybody have a great weekend.